You actually pick all the. Yeah. Like you. Yeah.
I just say they're dead. When's the last time you
Did you wait till they died to do that?
died? When's the last time you communicated with your parents? It's like kind of on the unskim sort of trajectory. So a month is actually into the. Yeah. So it's been about a month. Okay. Did they? Yeah, and they're in Wisconsin. They're from Minneapolis. Okay. All right. Very good. What do you do for? Likes to comedy. What do you do for fun that's comedy? Soft. Okay. All right. Would you like to wear a jersey at some point? It sounded like he had a cool Korean poster. It is true. It is true. Maybe we could make half of a version for you. We could.
You just gonna throw some hair on it? Just way. Just way too much gold.
I'm gonna ask this. What was the creative decision between putting the sunglasses on as you got on stage? Because you didn't have them walking up. That was was that like your big daddy moment where you were like, "This makes me feel safe," or what?
It's true. No, I was trying to get a cue for something where it'd be not a gender reveal, like a race reveal.
Oh, that didn't work. Oh, you thought we didn't know what was underneath the glasses?
That's incredible. These are duck hunting. They're supposed to be polarizing. Oh my god.
Okay.
Yeah, but even if we couldn't tell visually, you don't think your name kind of gave away?
Yeah, and the fact that you dropped chopsticks and a bottle of cologne on your way up here. Don't forget about the Persian. Don't forget about the... It felt like you wrote a set for an outfit you didn't wear and planned every joke around that. And you even said, if I was wearing camo pants, here's the jokes I would have done. And then did those jokes anyway. I've never seen that in my life. Very impressive.
I did a last minute change. What was the last minute change? I wanted to do something referring to the 9/11 jokes or like the winner.
Somehow you might have made a great choice. I don't know.
I feel like Middle Eastern comics are not always very good at 9/11 jokes. They're some of the worst at them. They really are.
Wow. I mean, they are the original creators of the entire premise. You know what I mean?
Oh, geez, yeah.
There would be no 9/11 jokes without the Middle Easterners. You know what I mean?
You're not fooling anyone with the hat.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. Yeah. Happy holidays yesterday, by the way. Unbelievable. You still have birthday cake on your chin. Just has two really long candles burned with fucking...
Oh my goodness. Well, Bajan, I mean, an amazing Kill Tony debut. It's incredible. I'm finding out more and more people, not just people pull that bucket, but people come up to me on the streets. It's the craziest thing. I can't believe people are moving here because of this insane show that has flies that fly around
on your finger the entire time.
I thought Sarah McLachlan was going to come out and start talking about you.
For 5 cents a day, you can feed this podcast host. Look how skinny he is.
In the arms of an angel.
John, an amazing Kill Tony debut. Congratulations. We'll see you again soon. Sign up again. Austin resident John Shalali has entered Austin.
Yeah, we should do that, shouldn't we? You know what? Actually, let's do one more bucket.
You guys like meeting people out of the bucket? No bucket. We'll go back to the bucket. I'm going to bring up one of your regulars right now. You guys like regulars on the show, right? You saw Hans earlier. Well, this guy's one of the longest standing regulars in the history of the show. Unbelievably famous for his incredible roasting and joke writing. This is Austin resident David Lucas.
Yeah. Huh. I don't fuck with BLM. Like Black Lives do matter, but fuck BLM Incorporated. You know what I'm saying? For real. It's not a black organization. So fuck this. Goddamn flies thinking about it? We gotta start that shit over. That was so cool. What the fuck? Yeah, I guess you can fit a nigga for 10 cents a day. Yeah, I don't fucking be a little. Like Black Lives do matter, but fuck BLM Incorporated. You know what I'm saying? That's not a black organization. That shit is funded by the LGBTQ. You know what I'm saying? Like the only people that give money to BLM is purple-haired managers at Trader Joe's. Them the only. Ain't no niggas ever gave money to BLM. I knew it wasn't a black organization because them motherfuckers never had a cookout. If you like, what a real time, motherfucker, ain't nobody told me to be at a parking range. Well, I'm like, fuck you.
First of all,
Holy shit. Unbelievable. Coming in, dropping the fucking hammer, having to improvise on some bullshit, some unexpected fucking. Just got back.
from the high desert and the great American Southwest, I can roll over the Martin wherever you may be in the world, every single inch of it covered one way or the other by the program. Good night in the desert. I'm Mark Bell. Great to be here. I had a surprise for you tonight, but it got blown by social media. That's all right. My guest tonight is going to be Travis Walton. Abductee, not alleged abductee. It says on Wiki, but abductee. The real deal, folks. 2 rules for my show. No bad language. No bad language. And only 1 call per show. That's the rules. The thank yous are jellos for the great sound. It is astounding what this television does. He's Roland, my webmaster, my producer, Heather Wade. More about him in a moment. All of you, of course, know that website. Check them out yet. They're mean. Well, they think they're mean. Slightly lovable. People who love our bill. MidnightInDesert.com. All chat sites. And the stream guys, of course, who get it all from you.net, who gets it from the stream guys, and then Peter Everhart, our new sales guy. And you know, I've been forgetting Neil, our newsman, who does an incredible job, no question about it. All right, real quick, being the news, Trump says Fox and his media. And I thought they were too, actually. A French search plane is lifting off, looking for more debris near Reunion. Nothing officially spotted as of yet. And then this item. Hi, Art. First, welcome back to the Airwaves podcast, radio, and all that. Great to hear you again. This photo I took in the winter of 2007. I took it right after it snowed here in Washington around midnight or so, back deck, looking northwest toward Dartmouth Bay.
Oh my
This is
God.
part of Puget Sound. There is a neighbor's house in the background, and there appears to be a ghost image. A pretty awful one, I might add, near the back edge of the deck, and it seems to be looking at me now. I didn't see it at the time of the photo, or the photo would not exist. I would have been heading indoors at the pace, locking the doors behind me. Hope you find it of interest. Boy, I sure do. Ron, thank you very much. It's on artbell.com if you want to go and take a look. This thing is really by any measure one of the better ghost photographs or featured photographs I've ever seen in my life. So artbell.com. All right, so in a moment, Travis Walton. I looked him up on Wiki. I've interviewed Travis probably 6 or 10 years ago or something. Travis, Wiki says, is an American logger who was allegedly, and I scratched that word out, he was abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975, after working with a logging crew in the Apache National Forest in Arizona. Well, could not be found, but in fact reappeared after a 5-day intensive search. The case received mainstream publicity, remains one of the best-known instances of alien abduction. Again, I went right past the ledge. UFO historian Jerome Hart writes that few abduction reports have created as much controversy as the Walton case. It was made, into a movie, a very, very popular movie called Fire in the Sky. And prior to doing tonight's interview, I again watched Fire in the Sky with my wife, who was utterly freaked out, completely freaked out. And so I imagine she is sitting intently listening to this interview. So what's going to happen is, coming up in a moment, the real McCoy, that's what he is, the real McCoy, Travis Walton. Stay right where you are. These interviews are few and far between. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Art Bell, as usual, raging. One of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw an old, a white horse.
David, you live in Austin now. Every single week you come on here, you're direct. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. You set the bar for exactly what it
There's a
means
man
to put it.
going around taking names,
You are unresponsible.
and he decides who to free and who to blame. Everybody will be treated all the same.
David and I have FaceTimed each other.
There will be a golden ladder reaching down from the man who jumps the The hairs on your arm will stand up like the terror in slip and in sun. Will you partake of that last offer cup or disappear into the water stripe? With a smile on your face, please call the show at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952 co-host. Good evening, everybody. Here he is from Snowflake, Arizona. Actually, the place he always was, really. Travis Walton, try.
Come on, everybody, one more time.
Good evening.
Good evening. It has been, I don't know, 6 years, 10 years, like forever since we have had an opportunity to talk. So
Yes.
it's really an honor to have you back. And I was serious about scratching out that alleged stuff. What happened to you?
Eric Sander and Manfry. Eric
Absolutely.
Sander and Manfry.
We're at the tipping point. Back in the day, they used to say anybody who believes in such things is a kook. Now we're actually coming to the point where the deepers and the skeptics are the kooks. Because the definition of kook is someone who believes things that are at odds with known facts and accepted beliefs. And that's them, not us.
That's right. That is them, and there is so much to prove it now. And I really hate taking you back to this story again, but that's what I have to do because they crucify me otherwise. You're still married, right? To Mike Rogers' sister?
Yeah, but we've been separated a number of years, amicably, but definitely living apart.
Okay.
November 5th, 1975. You know, in some ways, it's like yesterday. You know, it seems, you know, the emotional impact in particular. But the memories are so fresh, it's hard to believe it's been nearly 40 years.
Travis, has this defined your life ever since? I mean, I can't imagine that it hasn't. It's kind of defined your life.
Yeah, it has. You know, actually, you know, I have to say regrettably that, you know, it's something I live with every day. But the negative aspect of it has shifted. And, you know, that might be surprising. I stuck it out here in Snowflake, and it used to be, you know, people would look and whisper and point. But now, you know, the local people come up, shake my hand, and or greet me openly, and say, you know, I always supported you. And I'm thinking, well, I wish you had spoke up a little bit back then. But it is good, you know, that almost every time I go out now, I get some kind of positive response. And I'll tell you what, we've come a long ways in this town.
Oh, yes. How big a town now is Snowflake?
Well, it was about 3,500 then, but I don't know, not a whole lot bigger, might be 5,000.
Okay. All right.
We have a stoplight. We've added a McDonald's.
Oh, you have a stoplight and a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Wow. We celebrated here in Gorham, Nevada. We got our first stoplight and our first McDonald's, so I know how you feel. All right. So your crew consisted of Mike Rogers. Let's see.
Jim Peterson.
Jim Peterson, right?
Your minute is over.
Ken Peterson or
Ken Peterson. Kenneth Peterson.
right? John Gillette.
John Gillette. Dwayne Smith. Who always gets confused with brother Dwayne. It's a different spelling of Dwayne. And then there was Pierce, now and Dallas.
Okay. I'm going to go to the movie for this, and I know the movie probably got an awful lot of stuff wrong, but there's something I want to ask about, and that is, you know what? I shouldn't ask about that yet. Tell the story as I suppose Mike might have told it that night. The movie, is it close enough for comfort, or is it far away from what actually occurred?
Well, you know, anytime Hollywood tells a real life story, they've got to simplify and abbreviate and sort of symbolize things, because you're telling in 90 minutes something that spanned years. So some of that is to be expected and it's acceptable. I had two brothers, Don and Dwayne, who became one named Dan. James Garner was several investors in law that rolled into one, and they actually reduced the number of the crew from 7 to 6. And you know, some of that's acceptable and understandable, but the greatest amount of change are what happened before the crash, and I see no reason except commercial.
All right, well, we'll get to that. But all of this crew, you were up there cutting and clearing for, I guess, what, U.S. Forest Service?
Yeah, I have a contract to clear out undergrowth, damaged trees, and indigenous trees, and generally clean up the forest, and also a lot of fuel reduction, which is fire reduction strips in the area that makes it easier to fight forest fires that might spring up.
It's hard work, huh?
Oh, it's definitely some of the hardest work you can do in high altitude over steep terrain, and carrying a heavy chainsaw all day. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
It's for the young. And by the way, you are quite a bit older than you were then. How old were you at the time? You were 22?
I was 22, and now I'm 62.
Oh my God.
When you did your first
I'm 70. Travis, so there you go. Wow, you're over 60 now. Holy mackerel.
I can still outrun boys.
I don't feel it either at all, but it happens, and those years go by. So you guys were, you started out, everybody in the club going up there and working, and I guess that you were on your way home. It was dark, and if the movie is accurate, somebody saw something in the distance that, and I get part of this, that they claim looked at first like fire.
Yeah, it was a glow, and we tried out a number of ideas of what it might be. Deer hunters camped out there, a plane crash, a fire, but nothing was fitting in with what we were seeing.
Right. It full glow in the sky, kind of like in the movie, maybe not as reddish, but full. And the sun had gone down, of course, in the west. So it could not have been the sun. It had to be a fire, or as you mentioned, a crash or something like that. Anyway, it was apparently pretty much directly ahead of where you were headed on that only road you were on to get out of there, right?
Right, and closer we got, I could see that there was a break in the trees ahead where the light was shining across. So, Mike, hurry up, get up there and see what it is. By then, all had noticed it, and so we bounced along and went on up there. I mean, it was curious, but it wasn't all that alarming at first. But where's the clearing? Man, it was bam, it just hit us right between the eyes. It was unmistakable. Alan yelled out, "It's a flying saucer!"
Oh, did he really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. But it obviously looked like one, certainly depicted in the movies. Did the movies have it about right the way it looked?
No, not at all. It was definitely not some little glowing point of light off in the distance like the skeptics tried to say it could have been the planet Jupiter. And this was less than 90 feet away, unmistakable metallic disc hovering there. I threw open the door thinking it would just take off before I got 10 steps outside the truck. But the closer I got, the scareder everybody got.
Yeah, they all stayed in the truck, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, they were screaming bloody murder at you to get that hell back.
Yeah, they were describing me in some rather uncomplimentary language to get back in the truck so we could get the heck away from there. And, I was scared too, but I was trying to show it. So, the closer I got, the slower I went. And hear the sound that was making. It was a bizarre combination of highs and lows. And
highs and lows. You mean a pitch high, pitch low?
Cyclic sort of a sound, and then a throbbing, real below bass sort of sound. It was a really complex. I had a come to engineering school, and they were very interested in the types of sound that I was hearing because it would give clues about what might be driving this thing. But the closer I got, the scarier I got, and so when I got right to it, I mean, I was awestruck too. Later on.
Well, let me stop you and ask you, first of all, it's not your average person, Travis, would get out of the truck and try to run under something like this. The average person would do what the guys in the truck did after, something happened to you. Take off like a bat out of hell. I mean, that's scary. So, can you remember in your mind what caused you to get out of the truck and try to get under this thing?
Well, that's what I was trying to say, is that Alan and Steve thought it looked like I was under outside control and I was in some kind of trance. But, I think we were all entranced, so to speak. It was just an incredible, awesome night. And all the crew might agree with that. And it was just wow. And plus the sound, and plus there was something in the air, just this feeling. Like that, it seemed like something was about to happen. I think that we were sensing this electrical charge that was building. But,
yes, humans can feel that.
Yeah, and it was making the hair rise on the back of your neck. It wasn't just here. It was something kind of like a huge static charge or something.
That's probably exactly what it was. You can get that feeling. I've been under 500,000 volt lines, and you can get real shocks from touching the wet grass beneath it. And you can feel that in your whole body, kind of like that.
Yeah. And plus the vibration, it was subsonic and ultrasonic. They said they could feel it in the vibrating in the metal of the truck, But, Mike had turned the engine off because when everybody started exclaiming, he had to lean to see what everybody was looking at. But when I got up to where I was looking up at about a 45-degree angle, it was just so astonishing that it was smooth as glass. Over the entire surface, but parts of it were glowing and parts of it were metallic, and it was giving off this glow at the same time. You could see the surroundings reflected in the surface. It's kind of like when you look at a television set and you can see
it was reflective. Not like a mirror, but somewhat reflective.
Yeah.
I can't quite put my finger on what
I was looking up at it. Those guys were, pretty much in a panic, screaming out, "Get back in the truck!" And I decided to turn around and run, but it suddenly got louder and started to move. And so I just instinctively just jumped for cover. And there was a log in the middle of the clearing, part of this brush pile that was there. And so I jumped down behind it. And then, immediately, decided to run back to the truck. But when I stood up, my head and chest at that point became the closest point to that vehicle crash. It had been in that entire time. And that's when I just felt a shock. It felt like I'd been physically hit by a truck, but it also felt kind of like an electrical shock, sort of this numbing, sort of a paralyzing feeling. But that was something I just was like blacked out.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Travis. Are you on a portable phone?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I am on a cordless hardwired line.
Cordless hardwired. Okay, good. I'm getting an occasional little breakup, but nothing big, nothing fine. So you decided at the last minute, the heck with this, I'm going to run.
Really, really, really good for somebody that's been doing it for 8 months.
And
again, different than the movie, right? It didn't show that in the movie. What it showed in the movie was you got thrown by this thing. So that was wrong.
That is what happened. That is what happened.
Oh, it is what happened.
I decided to run, but I didn't just standing up and zap. And there was, the way it's depicted in the movie, that after he was jerked and then was thrown back, it kind of dragged out. It was just a, it's strange because Hollywood normally, wants to put on a light show, and they really missed an opportunity there. far more violent than they depicted. It was so violent that it was compared, by the crew that was watching to a grenade or a landmine thrown through the air. Wow. Some guys who said, it's only 10 feet. Some thought it was 20 feet. But John said that my body fell like a sack of meat, like there were no bones in it. They said that no attempt to break my fall or anything, to the point where, the violence was so powerful that they immediately started screaming they'd kill me.
They were convinced you were dead, and frankly, even from watching the movie, I can understand that they thought this thing had killed you. And of course, at that point, if the movie is accurate, they said, heck with this, we're getting out of here, and went tearing down some of the rest of that road as fast as they could go.
And then he wrecked in the truck, and I do not blame them. I always want to say that did the right thing at that point. What was the point of risking everyone's life to save somebody they thought was already dead? So anybody that thinks that was cowardly is just wrong. Mike, safety of the crew, under his responsibility. When they got up the road, they said that they argued about whether it actually disintegrated or incinerated me. When they were on to find some deer hunters, with guns to come back, they decided they would come back. Now in the movie, when Mike said, this truck's going back, anybody who doesn't want to can get out and wait here, nobody volunteered to stand alone in the dark like in the movie. They all said, no way, we're staying with the truck. So they all went back.
Okay, so, oh man, that's really a deviation. So every one of them went back. They didn't stand in the dark. As depicted in the movie, they all went back. Bless their hearts.
I give them credit for that. That took courage.
Yeah, true.
Like I was telling Steve today, courage is not absence of fear. Courage is to keep going in the present fear.
All right, so when they got back there,
Kenny was saying the scariest thing to him, because they saw the craft leaving, scariest him he thought would be what my charred body was going to look like running there.
You said they saw it leave?
Yeah, as they approached the area, they saw it spook off.
Wow. And obviously they were immediately you, and you were not there anymore. Now, was there any trace left on the ground of either you or the presence of that craft above?
Well, in the long term of ongoing research, there was evidence of the craft having been there. And when the sheriff brought in the tracking dogs from the state prison, they were unable to find the trail going anywhere beyond where my body fell in the middle of the clearing.
And before we get further with this story, because people are going to be going, oh, come on, when you get into the details, your entire crew was given a lie detector test. And if I had it right, the first one, Alice may have been a little unreadable because he was so freaked out. Everybody else passed the lie detector test. And then moreover, they were later given a second lie detector test, and everybody passed.
Yeah, the second round, Alan Dallas first, because obviously he had walked out on his initial test, but this was the same examiner. And Mike was retested. I took 2 more tests from the state police lie detector expert, which, at the time that the 6 tests had been passed, the president of the American Polygraph Association said that although polygraph on a single test is less than 100%, when you have that many people passing tests on the same issue, the odds are over 1,000,000 to 1 of any error.
Okay, guys, hold on. You can relax for about 7. This is Night in the Desert, and I'm on one-ton Curiosity rover landed on Mars 3 years ago this week. As the car-sized rover touched down on the Martian surface, it ushered in a new era of planetary exploration on Mars. It was also the start of something else. Curiosity's sardonic Twitter alter ego, known as the Sarcastic Rover. The Sarcastic Rover Twitter account on August 6, 2012. The night of the famous 7 minutes of terror landing that brought Curiosity to the Martian surface. Sarcastic Rover's brand of science-minded wit was apparent from the moment it arrived on Twitter. Sarcastic Rover acts like any of us would. Sent to Mars, it's kind of upset, a little lonely, and it wants to make fun of everything. The parody account resonated with people immediately. The account attracted some 7,000 followers during its first night online, according to Jason Phillips, the screenwriter and the mind behind the Sarcastic Robot. Sarcastic Rover now has about 144,000 followers, 3 years into Curiosity's mission. One of our listeners, Ron, ran across this photo from the winter of 2007 and says he took right after the It's around midnight or so, and the photo was taken on his back deck, which is looking northwest towards Port Gardner Bay, which is part of the Puget Sound. You can just see the neighbor's house in the background. There appears to be a ghost image near the edge of the deck, and it seems to be looking at Ron. He says he didn't see it at the time the photo was snapped. Instead, Ron says he would be heading indoors at a quick pace and locking the door behind him. Take a look at the backyard ghost sent in from one of our listeners, Ron, at darkmatternews.com or artbell.com.
After last night's show on Mindfulness, we had earthquakes, asteroids, UFOs, volcanic activity. There's something that should get loose. Earlier today, young Eric Waters had an experience that will change his life forever. Today, a Boone man trying to enjoy a little bit of time in the North Carolina mountains had a run-in with Sasquatch. His little doggy was able to chase it away. Due to some licensing issues on YouTube, we were not able to get the audio or the video for this. I am going to attempt to reenact today's video.
What's up, y'all?
No, Yippee! No, Yippee!
Honestly, since I've been in Austin,
No.
this drivers are horrible.
Oh, we're safe. That's about it. And while he was breathing heavy and saying no, Zippy, off to the right seemed to be a humanoid beast, a little shorter than normal. Might have been maybe a teenage, younger Sasquatch or Sasquatch or Secretariat. The Yeti seemed to be crouched and crawling away to the right. Seemed a little shorter than most. Yeah, that's right. Height doesn't matter. And this little guy was moving pretty quick from your normal Sasquatch. But hey, maybe we had to go. We made your calls. We enhanced some of the audio using our spectrometer vocalizer by subtracting the first and second tracks. Here's what we found. It continues to haunt me. According to our Latin specialist, he was saying when he was on vacation, Eric's memory of this is corroded and bruised by the horrible smell. He said it was somewhere between a dead, rotting flesh and the sweet, pungent smell of a freshly sprayed smell. Bigfoot investigators and enthusiasts from all over the area have sworn to North Carolina town. Hopefully we'll find out soon. This is John with Dark Matter News. Down to Georgia, he was looking for a soul stealer in a bag because he's way behind and he's willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sawing on a hill playing it high, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said, boy, let me tell you what. I guess you don't know it, but I am a fool player too. But if you care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you.
Now you play a pretty good fiddle, boy. You give the devil his due. I'm gonna fiddle with gold against your soul to make out better. Yeah,
My name is Scout. Worldwide, demonically Jew. Please be sure to use the headphone mic and call MITD 51. That's MITD 51.
All right, everybody. Travis Walton is here. A very rare interview, and I'm trying to cover as many details as I can and see where the movie separates from the truth and what the truth really is. This is a real story, as I mentioned before the break. Everybody involved took multiple lie detector tests, and so this, it's a real thing. Listen on, I guess, at your own peril if this kind of thing scares you, and it scares me.
As of now, there are 16 past tests. I've passed 5 different tests with 3 different examiners with extensive years in law enforcement, which is considered the better, more qualified polygraph examiner.
Even in the movie, the guy came out and said, look, the truth is, these guys were telling the truth, in my opinion. So,
yeah, and the examiners stand by it to this day.
All right. So we're going to get back to what happened to you in the crash, but the whole town went to buzzing as you were gone, and you were gone for a total of 5 days. My God, that's a long time. They had dogs out, they had people out combing, they had helicopters out, they looked for you everywhere, and of course they began to suspect your crew of your possible murder or something, right? And they became kind of unpopular in that small town. Are you still friends with Mike?
I haven't spoken to him in quite some time. He's kind of, threw up his hands and didn't want to talk about this anymore. But
how about the rest of them?
I'm going to have a couple of them come and speak at my conference, which we get to. And I'd like to get Mike to come too, but his health is not what it used to be.
I do understand. All right. Back to the movie for a second. One thing they never explained in the interview they were doing, as they thought he might have been murdered, they spoke to Alan Dallas. Now, he's referred in the movie, or referenced in the movie, that Dallas was kind of a, I don't know, what words would you use to describe it?
Yeah, he had some trouble with the law, and he was just generally, I had a few run-ins with various guys in the crew, and he and I had done a little sparring, and
he didn't much like you, I guess.
There was a little bit of antagonism over some things, It was a girl that he had been approach that I had been dating. This was before my wife. And then he and Mike got in a fist fight in the street in front of my house. And so, it was just his nature. But the day that it ended, he had dropped a tree nearly on me. And that's what led to all this problem with the polygraph. Did he have any bad intentions to
That's why it's not a real story.
Yeah, but he was pretty sure that they were going to try to pin the murder on him.
Well, it looked like they might try pretty hard for a while there. What they never explained, and Alan admitted that there had been, Alan Dallas admitted there had been an altercation with you. Now, was he referring to the tree because he had a pretty nasty cut on his hand? And they never explained that.
We get scratched up at work all the time, And after I was returned, the doctor examined me, found a puncture on my arm. And, it was assumed that happened during my abduction, but it could have easily been, being took by a thorn in the course of a work day, you know.
Now, the one on Dallas looked really, in the movie, looked really serious, like, he touched a chainsaw or something. Did you have a fight with him?
Not which it was. I mean, he nearly got the chew on me, and I gave him a dirty look at him. Said some things under my breath if he could read lips. It wasn't a friendly exchange there,
But not physical?
not normal. I mean, a rough bunch of guys.
Oh, yeah, of course. Alpha males, all of you. Was there an actual physical altercation
Most
with him?
embarrassing moment in my life.
When he tried to kick on me, Steve,
was also
the young scoundrelly laughs about how Alan fell on his behind trying to do that. It was just semi-good natured sparring.
Okay. All right. So no altercation that would produce a cut like they showed.
No.
All right. Now back to you, Travis. And you were, while the whole town is going nuts and searching for you for all these days, you're suddenly in. Well, where?
Well, I woke up on board the craft. I didn't know where I was at first, but I was in a lot of pain. And I was in and out for a while. And when I finally did come to, it was in a foggy, hazy kind of way. My vision was blurred, and even double vision, and it even hurt the light. Even though it wasn't bright, it hurt my eyes. And the pain in my head and chest was incredible. And I felt it was life-threatening. Something was terribly wrong inside.
Describe your environment if you can when you woke up. Can you? I mean, when you looked around, what do you see?
It was dimly lit, and I could hear the sounds of movement around me. And I could just barely make out the forms of what I thought were doctors. But then my vision cleared, and I could see these aliens standing close. And it just completely freaked me out. I mean, I was already scared about the way I felt, but I just completely lost my mind with fear.
Were you, describe what you were on, if you can. Were you on a
I
slab?
was lying on my back, and I was close enough to the ceiling before I even looked over and saw them. I figured I was on some kind of a gurney or a raised operating table, and I thought, that I'd been hurt somehow and taken to the hospital. And when I finally focused on what I thought were medical people, it was these aliens, and I just looked out.
Okay.
And a lot of people think, I was escaped from asteroid collision.
Who thinks that? Not me.
But you have to understand that, the pain I was feeling, the feeling of something mortally wrong inside, moreover, the most important feeling was that I felt like I couldn't get enough air. The feeling of suffocation. There's a scene in the movie of a membrane. Yes. With the actors laying on the table and aliens are surrounding him, struggling through this membrane, struggling to breathe through it. That didn't actually happen, but I think in that case, it does a better job of explaining the source of my panic, at least the chief source. But, that feeling of suffocation combined with the feeling of weakness, like you can't move when you need to move quickly. To get away. And so, suddenly realizing where I was gave me a shock of adrenaline, enough a burst of strength to actually sort of lash out at them. It was, pretty weak. And it was more of a push than a hit. And I rolled away in the opposite direction. The device they had lying across my chest fell off and hit the floor. But I just mainly kept my eyes on them as I backed away or stumbled backwards. And when I bumped up against this shelf behind me, I just looked real quick to see what I'd run into. And there was some things there, and I just grabbed the thing there and started flailing in their direction.
previous
and
profession,
that
you
stopped
think
their
that might be
approach.
right up against
All right,
the mouth.
two things to ask. One, the movie depicted the lack of gravity. You said something fell and hit the floor, so obviously there was some gravity.
Yeah, there was gravity. There was no weightlessness. And it's actually, if anything, it might have been slightly heavy gravity. To explain that feeling of weakness, although just the feeling of injury, I really think that whatever happened with that blast of energy from the crash, it did so much damage that when I came to that point, whatever efforts had been made to revive me were not complete.
All right, you described aliens really close to you, and of course everybody would like to know, what did these, were these creatures all similar, or can you describe?
They were very similar. You do have to look at the movie because they changed them. The panic that the people at Paramount had was these aliens had been in another production immediately prior to the production, filming the Fire in the Sky, right? And they did not want anybody, seeing something that had been seen before, so they changed the appearance. But they were what's, back in then they didn't have the term grays, but that's what people call these small, hairless, grayish white beings with huge eyes.
That is what you saw?
Yeah.
So that part would actually, there's a classic gray that you just described. Hairless, pretty small generally. Any idea how tall they were?
Shorter than 4 feet, for sure. Small. I really don't really use the term gray. I don't like that. I think that there's probably a number of similar species that are being stuck under one name that really come from very different places. And I have, a whole line of reasoning that tells me that that's the case. The variations in descriptions that you see, and also there are a number of species of animals on the Earth that look very similar, but are completely genetically unrelated. They just look similar because they live in a similar environment. And that's what I think is the case with these,
wherever they are.
Yeah.
So you actually pushed one, I guess, pretty hard. Did he go reeling backward or what?
Yeah, it was softer and lighter than I expected, because it fell back pretty easily. And it was probably partly because it was totally unexpected. I think they were trying to maintain control of it, and it took me many years to figure out that it was probably some kind of neurological impairment due to this blast of energy from that craft that really worked against their normal method of being able to control humans and keep them in some kind of trance or unconscious state. And that's why when they came around and I started yelling at them and they stopped and stared at me, that I felt that stare was so excruciating. That was my nightmares for months after the incident. That stare gave me this horrible feeling in my head. And in support of that was the EEG that I was given immediately afterwards that showed there was some kind of anomalous pattern that, I think is consistent with, some kind of burst of energy hitting me in the head.
Did they ever get control of you?
No, they were unable to get control of me, and I was thinking of fighting my way past them when they abruptly turned and left the room. They may have anticipated my move or just given up on. The three of them combining their forces couldn't control me. they were going to have to go to Plan B of some kind.
All right. Can you describe the room you were in?
It was very small, dimly lit, cramped. Not at all like depicted in the movie. It was not organic looking. It was not cluttered. Very featureless, metallic surfaces. I saw no writing or symbols, but, they may see in a broader spectrum of light than we do. I mean, there may have been something yeah. But anyway, they left and went down this passageway to the right. So I went out and went to the left, fearing that they would come back. Looking for a way out, just in a blind panic to just open the door and in my back of my mind thinking just drop to the ground, be back in the woods.
Drop to the ground.
I'm thinking that it was after doing work.
That could have been acceleration that you were feeling that would make you feel heavier. At this point, you couldn't even really know if you were still in the atmosphere of the Earth or way past.
Yeah, in hindsight, it would have been foolish to get a door open, but that was my goal. So I was afraid because the passage was so narrow and so cramped and it turned so tightly that I couldn't see very far behind me to see if they were chasing me. And I couldn't see very far to what was I, coming to.
Actually, I can see why you would think that. You might even think that you were still hovering not that far above the forest floor. So, yeah, of course. That makes sense.
So I went into this room where there were other doors leading out a bit, which later piecing together the floor plan wouldn't have led to the outside, but I thought at that point that was my best bet of escaping this place.
Makes sense to me.
And so I pushed buttons and things trying to open the door unsuccessfully. And it did cause this star pattern projection to move at one point.
What do you mean?
And there was this room was darkened and had points of light. Now, whether it was a planetarium-like projection or some viewing method where it was actually in real time, I don't know. But, it was very disorienting to have this pattern move.
Isn't that interesting? I don't recall hearing this before.
So it might have been, just a map that was moving. But when your sole points of reference are these points of light, I was already unsteady on my feet. So I decided to quit messing with that. And in hindsight, what if it was actually moving where the craft was, turning it upside down? Or crashing or something, I don't know.
All right, anyway, one quick question before we go on, and that's, from the moment you woke up, Travis, did you have any sense at all of how much time had passed, or whether a lot of time had passed while you were?
No idea. My initial impression was, since this was the first thing I was remembering, since, turning to run away, I thought it was immediately afterwards, but in hindsight, it could have been a day or two, or who knows how long afterwards, and also very far away.
Okay. What is your sense of the totality of time that you spent on the craft? How long?
Well, the conscious memory that I had about that time was a very brief period of time. I figured it was less than an hour, but obviously 5 days and 6 hours. Everybody leads to the question, what about time dilation? We travel near the speed of light and time passes more slowly for you. Well, the thing that refutes that was when I told my brother, said something immediately upon being recovered. Something he said about my mom worrying these days. he could tell that I thought it was still the same night. And he said, Travis, you've been gone 5 days. Feel your face. And I had a 5-day growth of beard. And that is what overturns the time dilation idea.
All right, Travis, hold it right there. We've got a quick break. Travis Walton is my guest. I'm Markel. This is Midnight Real Desert. Stay right where you are.
How much weight have you lost? I honestly don't know. I think if I had the yesterday, maybe probably 260 or something. I don't know. Okay. So we don't know what that means until you tell us what you are now. Huh? Huh? What do you weigh now? What? I won't say it again. What? When someone asks you how much weight you lost, you don't just tell them to be amazed. Weight, yeah. I once weighed 260, so I guess get a job at a carnival. And you can get a ballpark. You should have a ballpark answer. You say 100, 60, maybe. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel better for the last time.
American Southwest. This is Midnight in the Desert, exclusively on the Don't Matter Digital Network. To call the show, dial 1. I'm called to call Art, that's 1-952-225-5278. A rare interview with Travis Walton, abductee, real abductee. This is not listening to anybody else's story, it's just there's so much cooperation with this that I feel very comfortable in saying real abductee. Travis, I get questioned, and by the way, people are asking, what was the movie? My goodness, it is a long time ago. It's called Fire in the Sky, and you can still see it, and we've got updated stuff for you coming up. We'll tell you all about it in a moment.
I saw it on television night before last. It's still showing out there.
It sure is.
And it was on Netflix last I heard.
There you go. Joe wants to know what the device, the medical device you thought it was, what did that look like, the one on you?
Well, it was glowing kind of a greenish glow coming from underneath it. So I don't know whether it was some kind of a treatment device designed to repair the damage that was done internally, or if it was something designed to diagnose or look inside. But I definitely think my regaining consciousness was unexpected and actually kind of put a kink in their efforts to revive me.
All right.
For many years, I thought that I was taking aboard for experiments or to torture me, but it was actually probably more about reviving me.
Richard asks, would Travis get the feeling that the aliens didn't care whether you lived or died? In other words, did you feel they were caring for you, about you, or just sort of...
The Richard's question is related to what I was just saying at that time. The complete lack of emotion, I interpret it as hostility. But in total perspective, analyzing what happened, the way it fits in with the medical tests afterwards, and how I was returned and everything, it took me years to realize that it was probably more of an ambulance call than an abduction. But I got myself hurt, and that made it necessary to take me aboard just to avoid leaving me there as galactic roadkill.
You said you didn't feel as though you were more than about an hour in total had passed on board the craft, yes?
Yeah, a very brief period of time. Of course, in a state of area, it seems like forever, but when you piece together what happened and it was less than I thought. It certainly doesn't account for the entire time. But there were little glimmers of memory, and the hypnosis reinforces this, that there were blocked memories. that happened that I'm unable to recollect even after all this time, that other than what, came out under that first hypnosis session.
What did come out under the hypnosis session? What did you find out?
Up to that point, I was so traumatized that I couldn't finish a sentence about it. And I had not really told the entire story of what I had experienced to anyone, including my brother, until that hypnosis. And it was because it was just so traumatic, I'd break down and I could hardly finish a sentence. And so the technique was to separate the fear from the experience. And although there was a great deal of fear in what I was relating remaining, but it was still enough to where I could tell it what happened.
All right, so how did you get from the craft? I mean, we last left you going down a hall or passageway or something. And then what?
Well, my unskilled, I would say, butt fishing, trying to open a door, must have attracted some attention. I don't know, maybe coincidentally, this person came in that I took to be a human being from some Earth-based space agency or military arm of from the Earth, and but I really think now that wasn't the case. He took me out of this craft, and at this point, it was parked. It was inside of this big hangar-like structure. It could have been a building somewhere on a military base or somewhere, or it could have been a part of a larger craft. It had a sort of a look to the roof and wall that looked sort of like I'd seen in airplane hangars, but the light coming from these panels could have been filtered sunlight to a translucent panel, or it might have been an artificial natural light sort of light fixture. I have no idea where it was. I couldn't see out through these windows there, or if they were windows.
At any point, did any of these creatures communicate with you in any way, either vocally or telepathically?
I think that excruciating encounter initially with the three of them was an attempt to say something telepathically. And I was curious about why it was so excruciating until I connected to possibly that I was injured and the receiver, so to speak, wasn't operating correctly. I was interviewed the same day for this new movie coming up called 701, which refers to the 701 unresolved Blue Book cases. This movie is in the works yet, but I was interviewed the same day as these school kids from Zimbabwe, and I asked the young lady what that felt like when these, I don't know if you heard about this, but there were, if everyone heard about this thing where there's like 60 kids at recess in broad daylight, this craft came down, these aliens, like I described, came out and communicated to them through this stair. And I wanted to know if it was excruciating, like for them, like it was for me. And they said, no, it was very pleasant. The message wasn't unpleasant, it was friendly. And so that convinces me all the more that it was just an attempt with extreme aggressiveness, force of the combined force of the three of them trying to get control of me before I hurt them and actually hurt myself, because I think my unscheduled redeeming of consciousness interrupted some life-saving repairs. And so that's the reason for a human-looking person to come in and take me out. Fully human. Apparently, in most ways, there was something odd about the eyes, but again, I go back to the biology. See, Steph are really fond of saying, this is ridiculous, there are no aliens, because everybody reports bipedal, 2 hands, 2 legs, a head on top. Oh, they're not going to look anything like that, they're going to be a tentacled octopus. that's ridiculous. If you understand the principles of biology, bilateral symmetry is almost, throughout all life on Earth, no matter how diverse. And you have many cases where animals that resemble each other very, very much are completely unrelated just because they are in a similar ecological niche, in a similar environment.
Sure.
These
creatures, were they wearing helmets or were they breathing
different looking ones? The so-called grays were not wearing anything but coveralls, but the human looking one was wearing a helmet over his head. And so that was the reason I sort of accepted the fact that he was not responding to my babbling, my screaming, begging questions,
All right, I'm going back to my computer for a second here with a question. Yes, I got it. Heather would like to know, I have information. Is it true Travis was found to have radiation signatures in his blood? It can only be found if a person is exposed to radiation, like in space, outside of Earth's atmosphere.
That is an untrue rumor. Unfortunately, that specific test was not performed. That kind of evidence might have been apparent had they done such a test. However, the trees nearest where the craft came down do have definite markers of having huge radiation dose. And we can get into that in detail, but this accelerated growth that was generated in these trees has been duplicated in the trees. It's a Scots pine tree species near the Chernobyl nuclear accident. It's very similar to ponderosa pine, where this forest is. And the radiation Chernobyl caused an accelerated growth there, just like it did at the clearing. Now, the trees nearest where the craft came down had the greatest accelerated growth, and then the faded back into the woods. And most interestingly, the most recent discovery was that the accelerated growth was primarily on the side of the tree in the direction of the craft. So in a circle of trees around where the craft came down, the thickened growth would be on the east, west, south, or north, or whatever side was facing the craft, which completely undercuts any skeptic's idea that there was some growth effect that had nothing to do with the craft.
This is all new information to me.
It's new research, yes.
When was this outed?
So this was discovered in an expedition overseen by Ben Hansen, who was the host of the TV series Fact or Fake, FBI agent. He oversaw an expedition back there, and we were able to check that this accelerated growth, which we were aware of from going way back, but we didn't know it was directional until this last year, when we were able to get a complete cross-section of the trees. And this high radiation was detected with Geiger count on the men's hard hats during the search. And also, when I exited the truck, I left the door open. And the crewman that was in the open doorway was Tim Peterson. And his right arm, his arm towards the open door, has recently been diagnosed with skin cancer, which again is
sign of maybe radiation,
some high radiation coming out there. No, the blood tests didn't reveal that, but unfortunately, those kind of tests weren't around at the time.
Yes, indeed. Since the experience, have you noticed any changes in yourself? Psychic abilities, better understanding of yourself or anybody else or life itself? In other words, did it profoundly change you in some way?
All of the above, but I don't really like to get into that stuff. I have tried very hard to stick to things that I can document, right? And some things became documentable later, so I was able to talk about them later.
Like the radiation, but you're trying to avoid the woo-woo.
Have you seen Huntsville
Right.
before? I haven't seen it
But
tonight.
there's definitely some strange things that become apparent.
All right, let me get again. So you were in this hangar-like place.
Yeah.
I don't know how you got back to. I don't know.
He took me to some other people dressed similarly to him, except they didn't have helmets. And so I thought, well, maybe they can hear me. Maybe they'll answer my questions. Right? You know, I was a babbling idiot. I was screaming and crying, you know, carrying on. I was basically out of my mind with fear. But they weren't responding to me. In a way, you know, it might not have been so much secrecy or, you know, anything covert or suspicious that they wouldn't respond to me. It was just that I was acting like a maniac, and they felt that try to reason with somebody so out of control would be futile. So they forced me down on this table and rendered me unconscious. It was some sort of a gas. And next thing I woke, was back on Earth. But
where were you? When you woke up back on Earth, where were you? It showed you at a movie at a gas station or something.
Well, I woke up and I was lying face down in the dark on a cold pavement. But there was when I looked to see where the light was coming from. But it went off. But when I looked up, I could still see the shiny bottom of this craft hovering there, just for an instant before it shot straight up into the air. But I think probably quite a bit of time went on between the time I was put unconscious to the time I was lying on the pavement. I could feel that my clothes were still warm, even though the pavement was very cold, the air was very cold.
The movie showed you naked as a jaybird.
Not true. You know, it was dreadful. I mean, they actually filmed a sequence where the actor portraying me came upon a couple getting busy in a car. They're naked, and he's naked, and they start screaming, he starts screaming. He said it was so bad that it was mercifully deleted from the film. But I guess the nakedness is a good metaphor for the feeling that I had in a variety of ways. That these beings, this role, look into me like it's naked, and they knew what I was thinking. They could see into me. It was an intrusive, invasive kind of feeling. And then in the aftermath, the way the media microscopically analyzed my every move to an absurd extent. Every, you know, childish, act of bravado or whatever, you know, motorcycle stunts or whatever was just blown out of proportion. And, you know, they were just looking for anything that they could interpret as strange. So, you know, the whole idea of being the bug in the jar began on board the craft and continued for months after I was returned.
All right, right there, we're gonna break. Travis Walton is my guest. He's an abductee. Been there, done that, and that on Martha.
Have you seen like a man here in Austin?
Hey, I just got here.
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Into this house we're born. Into this world we go. Like a dog without a bone and hunter on a road. Riders on the storm.
Rothschild and Midnight in the Desert is pounding package your way on the Dark Matter Digital Network. To call the show, please direct your finger digits to dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952.
A rare interview. Travis Walton.
Got to you. Okay, Travis, here's one for you. You talked to us about the aliens and then what seemed to be more human-like characters. So an obvious question would seem to be, do you think that means that we know all about the aliens, that we are in some way cooperating with them? You got taken because they perhaps thought you were hurt. They didn't want you. They didn't want you to wake up. And when you did, they wanted you the hell out of there. And so those humans that you say you saw may have been, well, who knows, government types. Is that possible?
Well, that's possible, and that's what I initially thought. But now, going further into the skeptic's idea that no way would they even be vaguely humanoid, let alone human looking, is possible keener interest in us because of our similarity, which is just coincidental. I predict that when we look at life on other worlds, they're not going to be astonished at how bizarre these life forms are. They're going to be amazed at the similarity of forms. They uncovered a fossil of a marsupial that is built like a saber-toothed cat. It's a predator, and yet biologically completely unrelated, but very, very similar because of the niche that it filled in ecology. We have javelina in the Southwest that look like pigs, have cows behaviors in so many ways like pigs, and they're not pigs at all. The American pronghorn is not even a true antelope, and it resembles so much a particular African antelope species because our American pronghorn evolved here on the American continent in the presence of the American cheetah, which is now extinct. And because of the similarity in the environment, it takes on a similar form and a similar ability. Every animal that winds up living in the water, whether it be a mammal or a bird or a reptile or an amphibian, they all come to look very fish-like because the environment shapes the animal.
Okay, but clearly you were looking at two different species. I mean, you were looking at aliens and at something close to human.
Yeah, and I think that they were brought in, summoned, or their assistance was gained because of I would be less active, and they would be able to get some degree of cooperation and get me sedated to the point where they could finish the repairs. And B, they would know more and probably have more equipment and whatnot to deal with the nature of my injuries, which is why it took 5 days.
Dale, again, this is from the wormhole. Do you still have nightmares about this event?
I did for a long time, but that gradually faded away. Now, the dreams that came back later were not so much nightmares, but actually featured the human-type people to a much greater extent, but with a much different emotional feel to it.
Fascinating. I haven't kept up on all the other guys who were on your crew, or Mike's crew. Obviously, we're going to get a pretty good feel for how you're doing these days, which thankfully is pretty good. How are the other guys doing? Do you know?
One more time for Cody.
Well, come to find out, Alan Dallas had a heart attack and died here a couple of years ago. And last year, I found out that Dwayne Smith had also passed away from a heart attack. And, you know, I had quite a bit of difficulty tracking Dwayne Smith down. I had a friend who was a former police officer who enlisted the help of a friend who was a private detective. Found him. I talked to him on the phone, interviewed him. Unfortunately, I taped the interview because, you know, he agreed that he would come out and speak with me. But, you know, he had some real problems with his teeth and he wanted to get them fixed before he appeared on camera.
Right.
But he passed away Thanksgiving before last.
Wow. So many are gone is the answer.
And 2 of them have gone. Mike's had some health problems and some strokes and whatnot, but he's fought back pretty good. He's back to actually, you know, doing tree work. He does residential tree service now. John Gouette is back in the area locally, and so is Ken. He moved back into this area.
All right. Would you? I want to plug. Well, you've got a documentary, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, and also whatever else you've got going on. So there is new information out there that people can get. We're going to tell them how. What I really would like to do is, would you mind answering a few phone calls?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Travis Walton is my guest. If you want to call us, the public number is area code 952-225-5278. Rare opportunity. 952-225-5278. North America, meaning American Canada, can get us at MITD 51 on Skype, MITD 51. If you're outside North America or Canada, you can call on Skype using MITD 55. That's MITD 55. So if you have a question for you, and I can't imagine you don't, pick up the phone or pick up Skype and join us. Travis Walton, Midnight in the Desert.
United States.
The increase in availability of drones is all but certainly to cause an airplane accident, in part because it's difficult to catch people in the act of flying the small unmanned drones. CBS News aviation and safety expert Chelsea Sullenberger said Sunday that we've seen what a 6-pound or 8-pound bird can do to bring down an airplane. She said on Face the Nation, a nod to the flock of the birds that knocked out both of the engines and forced him to land a plane in the Hudson River in 2009. Imagine what a device containing hard parts like batteries and motors can do that might weigh 25 or possibly up to 55 pounds to bring down an airplane. It's not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of when it will happen. There's been a dramatic increase in the number of unmanned aircraft flying near commercial planes, and in some cases pilots have had to alter their courses to avoid collision. Sullenberger said the devices are becoming ubiquitous because they are relatively cheap and easy to procure, but that it allows people to do stupid, reckless, dangerous things with abandon. He says he's encouraged that aviation and the legal authorities have raised the penalties for doing these things, adding that the essential element that's still missing is the certainty of prosecution because it's been difficult to catch them in the act. Well, the Mars rover has been producing quite a few interesting photographs, to say the least, lately. One appears to be a ghostly woman, and another one may indicate an infestation of crabs on Mars. This recent Mars photograph seems to show a giant alien crab. Well, the mysterious object closely resembles the crustacean anyway. It's unknown exactly who found it, but it's really interesting. It does appear alive. It may be a crab-like animal, or it might also be a plant. This object has many arms, and one of them goes to the left of the picture, a very long ways. That arm is longer than all the others. Plant or animal, well, it really doesn't matter. The significance of this may be that it might show signs of life on Mars. Take a look at the photos yourself and know what you see at darkmatternews.com. It's Friday, and that means open line night on Art Bell. Let us know what you think stories on Dark Matter News tonight. And remember, you can always submit a tip online at darkmatternews.com.
After last night's show on Bigfoot, we had earthquakes, meteors, asteroids, UFOs, volcanic activity, and something is shaking loose. Bigfoot, Yeti, the Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, whatever you may call it, showed up today in North Carolina. Little Eric and little dog Yippee, they caught it firsthand and on video. The recording is of a Sasquatch mating call, war scream, or a greeting from some other dimension. Here it comes. It continues to haunt me. In the terrifying last few moments of Art Bell's show, final caller came in with a recording that still sends chills down my spine.
I guess, do you want me to end your show with what I would think may be a Bigfoot scream that I heard out there in the woods in southeast Oklahoma?
I will listen for the world, man. Go ahead.
And with North Korea rolling their time back 30 minutes, you may not even have heard this yet. And for those of you following politics, Fox News and Facebook will no longer be hosting GOP debates. The WWE has picked up the contract. And after Trump's shrewd remarks during the debate, Rosie O'Donnell fires back with this crazy tweet. It continues to haunt me. This is John G. with Dark Matter News.
Hey, they can't do a nice thing and just shut the fuck up about it. Right. They kept telling her that they gave me money, and she's like, "He's not in a marching band."
Oh, shit.
Classic Cody. You know, he should be giving those pain pills to Tanya Harding. She needed them. She had a...
Well, Cody, congratulations on getting pulled out of the bucket once again. Did you get a joke book last time you were here?
I did.
You got a little one.
I didn't get a little one. Can I get a little one?
Yeah, you got a big one last time? Here you go. Catch this. This is an official Kill Tony joke book. There he goes. Cody Green, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep this fun train moving along here. All right, back to the bucket we go. All right, everybody, make some noise for Gary Falcon, everyone. Gary Falcon. Here we go. Oh, here he comes over here. It's Gary Falcon. He's over here. Gary Falcon, everybody. Put your hands together for Gary Falcon. What's going on?
The numbers by now, I hope. There's going to be an upcoming documentary. In other words, there's been a lot of information since all this happened. The movie was made. Not everything in the movie was just so. So there's a brand new 90-minute documentary called Travis. Tell us about it.
Well, it's produced by On Wings Production. That's ONWINGES Production. And it interviews a lot of the prominent researchers in the field. Some who have been active since it happened originally, and some more recent to the scene. But
all about your case.
Yes, all about my case. It's a 90-minute film. It's won a couple of EBE awards. And it's really a fantastic, very thorough account.
Well, we're getting some interference on this line. I don't know if you can hear it on your end or not.
Yeah, we had some sabotage attempts on our local fiber optic node, and
that would account for the little breakup I hear, as well as the static. All right. So this documentary
took a shotgun to various fiber optic connections.
Wonderful. I bet that's fun to fix. Anyway, this documentary, where can people get it? How is it obtained?
Well, like I said, through onwingsproductions.com or through my website, traviswalton.com.
Excellent. Also, you've got a conference coming up, right?
Yeah, this is the 40th anniversary of the event, and we've got quite a lineup of speakers. Tracy Torme, who was the original screenwriter on Last Guy, will be there, and his co-producer on 701, the movie, James Fox, will also be speaking. We've got David Childress, Ben Hansen, Lee Spiegel from Huffington Post, UFO editor Paola Harris. Lynn Katai will be speaking about the Phoenix Lights, and I've got Robert
Morningstar,
Uriarte, and Mary Torres. They wrote a book called Voice of Aliens. I think it's fascinating to go back to the pre-history of UFOs and show that this is not some kind of a phenomenon exclusive to post Roswell. This goes way back reports in the Southwest.
All right, here's a big question. Gilberto wants to know by computer, were you ever debriefed, it's a good question, by any government agency about the abduction experience? I would think they would be interested.
You would think they would, and it's very, very curious that I have received no interest from any government agency. Now, it was widely suspected for a long time that our chief debunker for many years, Philip Klass, was acting as some kind of a covert disinformationist on behalf of some government agency. And he harassed the heck out of Mike Rogers, and he ought to, discredit him. And this bribe offer is well documented. It was carried by local deputy James Clegg. And you, Art, challenged Philip Klass to take a polygraph test on the air. Yes, and you got quite a bit of backlash over that. Well, you have been vindicated. Through the Freedom of Information Act, after Klass passed away, his FBI revealed some very interesting stuff that I wish you had been able to get Philip Klass to take a polygraph test, because I think he would have flunked it in regards to his covert disinformation, if you will.
Well, I don't think anybody in the audience is surprised that that kind of thing is going on. All right, let's see who we've got. Richard, somewhere out in the world, you're on with Travis, huh?
Richard from Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland, okay.
Yeah. And good show as always. And big shout out to Belga. And I have a question for Travis.
Okay.
You don't get nuts like Travis. And there was a suggestion a few years ago that perhaps what you stumbled upon was some great government project. And in fact, the whole alien thing was a result of how hallucinogens force-fed to you. Is there any truth or any possibility that's the case?
No, there's no possibility to that. That was kind of a theory that was put forth because people were desperate to explain it away. And, well, why does he pass a lie detector test? Well, he believes it happened. So he really hallucinated it. And it didn't really, but he thinks it did. But that theory and the transitory psychosis theory and another one involving hypnosis have no basis because it doesn't explain how 7 people can have an identical hallucination.
All right, let's go.
Also, medical tests showed no trace of any drug in the body.
Thank you. Scott, you're on the air with Travis.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah. Travis, I have a question for you. Do you think that the spotlight on you, because now you have a celebrity status, do you think that now that you have a celebrity status, maybe the ETs are kind of backing away from you a little bit?
I don't know. If that were a security measure, then okay. But I don't know. Here at February 4 last, I was driving, leaving a MUFON meeting in LA. I was going north up the 5 towards the 10 to come back to Arizona. I was with my girlfriend and my son, and we saw a giant triangular black craft come low overhead. Undeniable, incredibly close. I was astonished that you would have something over a city the size of LA and not have all kinds of reports. Well, we did a little research online. My son found this website called UFOstalker.com, and at that exact time and place, there were over a dozen reports of the same thing. So others saw it too.
I saw one of them, Travis, a big triangular craft. Scott, anything else?
Oh, yes. Actually, I live over here in Massachusetts. Actually, I had a sighting myself, actually, but it was more of a ring of have either you, Art, or Travis, like a ring of light that would float above somebody? Because that's actually what I saw above myself. It came, about 10 feet above my vehicle, actually. And it came really close, and it floated really close, and then it just ascended right up in the sky. I was
wondering, that would be a big no for me. What about you, Travis? Any ring?
I've heard of such reports, but I haven't seen such a thing myself.
I'm sure everybody comes to you now with every story. I mean, if they do with me, once they know that you're open to that kind of thing, they really come to you a lot. Let's go to, I don't know, York, is that correct? Saskatchewan, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely correct again there. Thanks for taking my call, and hello, Travis. I actually have a question. That's the questions. First one is, do you think the aliens are here to help us? Because you always hear that there's the negative experiences, but do you think that they're here for the good or the bad? First question.
Well, this is just my opinion, and it mostly speaks to the species that I encountered, and I really do not see them as malevolent. However, I think that there is something that's, been suggested in science fiction as the Prime Directive, the Non-Interference Directive, that it's against the rules to overtly infuse any kind of technology, because, that's like giving matches to kids, we're just going to use it to hurt ourselves. So it makes sense that they're not going to do it. And I can expound on this a little further. The skeptics are fond of saying, if this was real, they'd land on the White House lawn and say, here we are, Mr. President. But I also posit that with their level of technology so far beyond ours, that they are perfectly capable of doing everything that they're doing here and remain completely undetected. There would be no ufology, there would be no sightings. They could accomplish that, I believe. Sure. So you have to explain why it's neither extreme. In my view, these glimpses, which are just barely provable enough to let this knowledge, this awareness filter through the population in a way that doesn't have the kind of overwhelming disruptive effect that just instant open disclosure would have.
Right. Caller?
That sounds great. And one more quick question, if I can. Travis, did you see any more people up there with you, or is it just you?
There were some other human-looking beings, but like in the movie where there were human cadavers and that's or artifacts of other people having been there. No, I did not see that.
All right, off to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hello.
All right. Hello, how's it going?
It's going okay. Turn your radio or whatever off, please.
Yep, we'll do right now. Got it.
All right, proceed.
Hi, I have a question for Travis. It's part of pop culture that aliens, when they abduct you, they stick probes in you. Is there any truth to that?
You mean, did it happen to Travis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. After penetrating with any probes?
Right, okay, I got it. They showed in the movie about the most horrible scene anybody can imagine, with this needle coming to Travis's trapped eye. Oh, God, that was awful. I'm so glad that didn't happen to you, Travis. Anything else?
Well, there was an array of instruments there laid out. I had great apprehension about how they might have been used initially, thinking that, some bizarre effects could come out later, but I really think that they were just simply there to try to help, and so I don't think anything, I have no conscious memory of any probing or anything. I think what was done medically was just to correct a terrible accident that I brought on myself by getting too close. Nothing.
All right, let's go to Scott. Hello, Scott, on Skype. You're on the air.
Hi, Travis.
Get closer to your computer, so you sound like you're in a hall.
Can you hear me out?
That's better.
Okay. Art and Travis, it's great to talk to you both. Scott in Vancouver. I'm listening to you on TuneIn Radio, and this is one of the most fantastic stories, obviously, that I've ever heard. I've heard Travis speak over the years, and another thing a few people have touched on it. What have you, has time woken any memories up that might have been buried? Has anything come forward that might have been hidden before? Was there a message? I mean, you hear these kids in South Africa that were imparted to them that we have to save the planet. Was there any direct message to you? So a few questions kind of combined there, and I'll listen up there.
Well, back about the time I was doing so many interviews for the movie, I started having these memories, little dreams or whatever, glimmers coming through, involving these human-looking types of people. And I went to Tracy Torme, the screenwriter on the film, and I asked him, do you think that there could be some memories returning? And he said, no. He said, it's probably just, because you're doing all these interviews, that it's probably just dreams. And so I asked him the same question here recently, and he says, oh yeah, there was probably memories leaking back through. So he profoundly changed his opinion. But none of those memories, really constitute any useful information. They were just glimmers of things. And it definitely had a much more positive feeling than the earlier nightmares that we had.
You're a very lucky guy because there was so much collaboration. A lot of hypnotism, so many people, witnesses, the whole smear. You had it all. There are other abductees who tell stories, but without that kind of collaboration. Do you have any feelings about the whole abduction phenomenon, people who tell these stories?
I think there's a whole mix of things going on. It's a variety of things, all of the above, actually. Some of it is extreme vivid memory, some of it is delusion, some of it is misidentified ordinary things. But I believe there's a core reality here of other events and sightings and things that have happened. And just because someone is unable to document it doesn't mean it's not true. But, in terms of trying to get the public to become aware that there is a core reality here, that's the reason I stick to documentation. It's not like that's what you have to have, but that's for it to be true, but that's what you have in order to bring people along and make them realize we're not alone, this is real.
You're right. You dropped a sort of a hint earlier that there have been changes in you that you don't really want to describe, and I jumped into because of the woo factor. And you know, I'm dying to know what they are.
All right, I'll give you what I can document. I didn't want to say anything about the health effects because I couldn't document it, but I went into my employers and got the documentation that I never called in sick one time in the last 39 years.
Wow.
And so, wow, unusual.
It's extremely unusual. Are you kidding? 39 years.
Yeah.
You never called in sick once.
No.
So if anything, you got a health benefit.
Possibly. I mean, there could be a coincidence that I'm healthy, but you know, I never missed a day of work except for a funeral sometimes.
Hazelton, Pennsylvania. Your turn with Travis Walton. Hi.
Hi, to the both of you. Very interesting. I missed the very beginning of the show. Where did this happen? It happened south of Eagle River, Arizona. Okay, up on Mogollon Rim, over 7,000 feet elevation, up in the ponderosa pines of the Sitkins National Forest, very near the border to the Apache reservation. And you talked about when they left you out of the craft or whatever it was, you were in some kind of a hangar, is that it? Yeah, apparently, either a hangar or maybe possibly a larger craft. How did you get out of that? Well, I was rendered unconscious, but when I woke up, I was returned. So obviously, they transported me to a vehicle after I was unconscious and brought me back. And in a way that really just reinforced my theory that it was with concern for my welfare. I mean, they could have dumped me off on some asteroid or even back in the woods where it happened, where I would have froze to death before I got help. So you didn't know the time that was happening, right? You didn't know when you were being transported. You didn't, there's no consciousness of that at all, right? Right. Yeah, wow, get me out. Well, lots of memories. I do think with these little glimmers that have been coming through, that at least part of that time I wasn't in a coma or anesthesia. That part of the time there was some kind of interaction, especially with these people.
Okay, your documentary name again?
Is Travis. I didn't name it. That's not my ego playing there. They named it Travis.
Oh, you deserve a documentary name. No problem. We'll tell everybody how to get it. Stay right there. We're up against break. It'll be a quick one, and we'll be right back. Travis Walton is my guest. My story is always the same. A few new things, but always the same.
Let me sit on my paperwork, please. That motherfucker made snow angels with ass cheeks. You know, you gotta make Thanksgiving turkey with your red. Tony got enough butt cheeks Thanksgiving in his mama's house. I don't even know what the fuck you're saying right now. It don't matter. He can eat it up.
You bet I felt it. I tried to hit you, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and I'm trying to get back. Before the cool down run out, I'll be giving it my best. Yes, nothing's gonna stop it. Divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win the song. Learn song.
Take a walk on the wild side of midnight. From the kingdom of Nile, this is Midnight in the Desert with our friend please call the show at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-CALL. All right. Travis Walton is my guest. Very unusual to get the opportunity to interview Travis. He's got a new documentary coming out called Travis. And again, I guess you can go to his website and order it. How much, Travis?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I think it's 25. I think it's 25.
All right. And you also have a conference coming up called Sky Fire Summit, right?
Yeah, it's November 5th, 6th, and 7th in either order of the calendars where it happened. And we are going to have a visit to the site on the anniversary and a really neat skywatch with some special equipment.
How is it dealing with celebrity? Somebody mentioned that earlier, and this course is going to be with you all your life. How have you dealt with it since the incident? Are you patient with people, or is it really rough? Are you eating dinner a lot of times? Somebody comes up and wants an autograph, or what happens?
Yeah, you just wash your hands and they want to shake your hand. I mean,
always.
No, actually, I have total patience for that. I totally understand. One thing that, Dr. Carter, right after it happened, put me on the phone with Betty Hill, and I got some advice from her about that, about not letting it change you. And I really took that to heart. I worked very hard at not letting it affect me one way or the other. I'm not going to accept the idea that I'm a crazy kook or a liar. And by the same token, I can't accept the idea that I'm some kind of a great person. What happened was an extraordinary event. That doesn't necessarily make me an extraordinary person. So,
I do, and I do understand what it's like to deal with celebrity, and you have to be patient with people because it comes. They do jump in at the oddest moments.
Yeah, it's fortunate I live in a very out-of-the-way place, and it's been harder to reach. But when I go out, I try to be gracious with people, and I understand their interest and do my best because it's my mission is to educate people. And,
on their behalf, thank you for that. On Skype, Jacob, you were on here.
Good evening. I have a question for Travis.
Yes.
If you were to encounter a UFO again, how do you think you would react? Do you think you'd feel the same kind of fear, or do you think you might perhaps try a more diplomatic approach this time around?
Yeah, that's a good question.
In other words, would I do what people say? Oh, I would stay calm and ask good questions. Well, the fear that came on was an accidental conspiracy of circumstances that made it seem far more threatening, which it actually wasn't. And I think I would handle it better, but I don't know that I'd voluntarily be so foolish as to get myself injured again. However, it would be great to have some questions answered. But the big question is what I tell you. And I have to say, probably not.
When thinking now of this entire incident, are there things, not that I need to know them, that you have not made public?
Yeah, but like I say, I just try to stick to what I can document and leave it at that, because it's important to, show people that there's a reality here. And I don't want to put anything out there that can be questioned, even though it's as real as any of it. If I can't prove it, I'm not going to talk about it.
I so understand that. Hello there. Wherever you are, you're on the air. Turn your device off or down, please.
How you doing? It's Grizz on TuneIn chat. I didn't be on TuneIn. And my question is, what does the image smell like? What does it smell like? Can no one ever describe that?
Right, you're absolutely right. It's a good question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people do have a description of the smell, and that's actually a pretty common question that people wonder about that, but I don't recall the sense of smell. And normally when you have an intense emotional experience, that the smell is very intimately linked with memory. But in my case, other than feeling very stale and humid, it may be that the atmosphere in there was so strange that it wasn't appropriate for a human. Obviously, because the human-looking guy that came in was wearing a helmet, and unless that was for some other reason.
You said stale and humid. So obviously, it's not like you felt air. Obviously, you were breathing air, but you didn't feel air moving at all. It was just sort of a very dank.
Yeah, very humid, and I was breathing part-time, and I just felt like I could not get enough air. So I think that either that blast of energy damaged my lungs, or maybe the neurological part of my brain responsible for breathing, or that atmosphere in there was just not right for humans. Maybe some of both.
Yeah, maybe they got as close as they could get. Chris, hello, on Skype. You're on there.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well.
Good. I was calling up. Thank you for having me on. So how you doing? Don, you described, that on the movie Fire in the Sky, that the crowd wasn't what it looked like. He said, but I had my own encounter. I'll get into that. But the one we did, we had an encounter with the crowd. Huge glass dome on top of it. Did you happen to notice that there was a huge glass dome on top of the crowd?
There was a dome on top. There was a dome on top, but I did not look out from it from the inside. I never got to that part of the crowd, but it did have a dome on top.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just wondering. Like I said, I had my own experience, and it's fascinating. It's very fascinating. And you said that most of your memories were hit through when you got back through hypnosis?
Well, no, actually, it didn't add to the memories. It just allowed me to finally say them without breaking down.
What's it like being hypnotized? Is it pretty weird? I mean, are you conscious during it and aware of your surroundings? And is it just other memories confronting that? Or what was it like?
I didn't really remember when I came out of the trance. My brother was present, and he told me about certain things that I didn't remember. I understand some people do remember, but I didn't.
Dr. Flagstaff, Arizona, your turn. Hello.
Hi, thanks.
Sure.
Is that true?
Hi, my name's Zach. I'm from Arizona. I try this up north and Flagstaff. And my question for you is that I feel like earlier in what happened to you, a lot of what you were saying was like there was an attack on you by extraterrestrial life. So my question now is that just hearing you earlier in the show, you feel like there's more of an altruistic aspect to extraterrestrial life now, like they weren't trying to.
Well, yeah, I interpreted it as an attack. That possibly this blast of energy was even a beam that was fired, even mistakenly, as a defensive move. But now I'm thinking that it was just some kind of a side effect of the propulsion unit that, just jumped to the Earth through me. Our famous UFO skeptic even wrote a paper saying that pilots who think they see they're being encircled by UFOs are actually seeing the result of the huge charges up to 500,000 volts that actually have been documented to build up in the surface of our aircraft, just passing at high speed through the air. So, maybe some kind of an effect like that of this saucer traveling through the air at very high speed, or maybe some effect of the propulsion unit, or maybe they were in the process of some agricultural experiment there with the trees and some residual energy from that. I don't know. I just don't think it was a deliberate weapon I think that because I unexpectedly closed the distance and got myself hurt, that it made it necessary for them to take me aboard in the mistake that I made. So I'm not saying that they were that it was a hostile act at all, as I mistakenly made it thought at first.
All right.
Trying to figure out what
All
right. And
thank you very much. Okay, so here's a question from somebody named Big C through the wormhole. Great show. Question to Travis. Was he a skeptic of the existence of ETs, UFOs, that sort of thing before this happened to you? I mean, did you have any attitude at all about this?
No, I was not that ignorant. Really, studies have shown that over 60% of the people believe in the reality of this, and to the extent, and the percentage goes up with the educational level. So it's really dumb people who say this can't be, because we've reached the point now where it's a virtual certainty with accepted scientific methods. We have the Hubble telescope and Kepler, and they've actually been able to fill in the blanks on the Drake equation. The estimation of habitable or life-supporting planets in our galaxy is far greater than they once thought. That virtually every star has about a dozen planets, and that there's always going to be those middle ones, the Goldilocks rings, that aren't so close that they're overheated or so far out that they're frozen. And life, with the right chemicals, is going to be inevitable in those places.
You're beginning to sound like a scientist. Of course, you've been looking at this now for a while, haven't you?
I've been studying it for 39 years.
I don't know. It says anonymous, so I don't know where we're going. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Art.
Hello.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, sir.
And last year, my wife and I were at the Skyfire Summit in the Hero area with, hosted by Travis. And he had two Navajo Rangers that were speaking at the event. And these guys were super intense. I mean, we had a conversation. My wife and I were telling them outside. And he had federal, law enforcement training. And this guy would look right through a no holds barred kind of guy. And I was curious as to how Travis met them and if they ever teamed up together, with Travis's conviction of his story. And these two gentlemen, it was a powerful combination to, go on a circuit.
Okay, Travis?
Well, I had the opportunity to speak in Gallup at a film festival there on the Navajo reservation, and spoke to nearly 1,000 Native Americans in the valley. And they have some amazing stories about things that happened way back in the far reaches of the reservation. It's very remote out there, and these entities seem to have quite an attraction to more remote areas. This one story I got was of a guy's grandmother woven a blanket depicting an encounter with these beings going way back. So, the oral tradition amongst the tribes, the Zuni, the Navajo, the Hopi, it's pretty extensive, but this is not a new phenomenon. And that was the reason that I invited him to my conference, because that's a perspective that I think is very important. And that's the reason I'm having Noe Torres and Uriarte speak this year on the Cowboys and Aliens topic, that this predates the early days, the very, first Europeans to come to this area were experiencing and seeing things even then.
Harmony, very quickly, somewhere in the world. You're on the air with Travis.
Whenever you do run for mayor.
Hello.
Hi, Travis. Hi.
You're too loud. Just back away a little bit and tell us where you're calling. Where are you calling from?
I'm really
New Zealand.
From Nelson, New Zealand, and I had a couple of encounters in the very similar time period as what Travis is, where I looked on the net, I read some of his story, but I'll tell you the second one first, because I think it'll corroborate some of what he's saying. The second one was a visual that we had in 1978. It was some sort of a craft that came across the Pacific Ocean from the distance, about 100 miles, and it covered 100 miles in about 10 seconds, went directly over our heads, flashing strobe lights, red, white, yellow, and blue. It covered that distance in 10 seconds, didn't make a sound, and it was within a half a mile of us when it went over our heads. There's reports in Ludington, Michigan on the 28th of July that year, 1978. A lot of other people saw it as well, including quite a few people from the Coast Guard and the Sheriff's Department, so you can look at the NICAP org website for that. Anyway, that was a visual. The other one was around the same time in 1975. I was in Los Angeles, and I was being threatened by a biker. And instead of defending myself, I sat down in a cross-legged position and closed my eyes. And I got hit by a tractor beam or something, and it was like a billion volts of electricity, knocked me down on the ground and shook me for a minute. I was having a seizure.
You sure the biker didn't hit you?
Right? It was over. Okay, it was over. No, the biker, they just stood there with their jaws dropped. They couldn't, and they walked away. The whole situation just diffused at that point. So I've been a believer ever since that we are not alone. We are not alone. And most of the news we do is BS.
Yeah. Right about that. All right, I'm sorry, we've got a break here, so everybody hold tight for a moment. Travis Walton is my guest. This is Midnight in the Desert, raging in the night. From the high Exploring on Midnight with alcohol, if using stuff from your food, please be sure to use a headset mic and call MITD 51. That's MITD 51. That's the way it's done. If you're outside North America, it's MITD 55. MITD 55. And of course, on Skype, it's 3. Travis Walton is here, and here he is once again. Okay, Travis, sort of a short time between breaks on this one. So, Nayan, is that correct?
Nayan.
Sorry.
Yeah, my name's actually Nathan. It was a made-up video game name.
Okay. Where are you?
Appreciate you taking my call, by the way. Me and my brother are big fans. You caused us a lot of sleepless nights in a good way, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Where are my question was, like, do you think the ETs that you saw are kind of, you know, like like robots or biologically programmed, like if we see Intel, we see cameras down there, or, you know what I mean? Do you think they're like a way to communicate a bridge, like if they're like fourth dimensional beings, you know?
Do you think that's a way to communicate with us?
Well, using Occam's razor, I see that no necessity for that. If an advanced civilization could create a being that could stand in for an organic being to resemble in every way a living, breathing thing, it would be undetectable. So there would have been no way that I could have seen such a creation. But I also don't see the necessity of it. I think with their kind of technology, it's not that big of a leap to come here. It's just that they're very circumspect out of respect for our level of development.
What did the ship look like?
All right, we'll get to that. Where are you calling from? I want to get to that.
Oh, Oklahoma.
All right. So, yes, as best you can describe, I guess, the shape. You've sort of already done that, but for him, if you would.
Well, a metallic disc with a dome on top. The glowing areas with non-glowing areas that are more like some kind of a more rigid part of the structure. I don't know the nature of why some of it was glowing. It didn't feel hot. I was close enough that I think that if it was glowing because of a high temperature, that I would have been able to feel the heat, but I didn't feel heat.
Would you roughly describe it as a flying saucer?
Yes, like two pythons, but lip to lip, kind of angular. But the craft that I was returned from was more rounded, but again, still a disc shape. I'm thinking that something to do with the propulsion requires a generally circular dimension.
A lot of people are sending in questions on the computer asking if you have had any experience or contact since.
That's a very common question, and I always tell them, if I did, I wouldn't tell anybody, because I stick to what I can document. I didn't talk about that giant black triangle because I had 2 witnesses with me, and then went online and found there was a dozen more.
Mm-hmm. I think you're doing a wise thing, because if you had another experience and laid that out for everybody, you're absolutely right. It would detract from your credibility, no matter how true it might be.
Exactly.
So, very.
That's the nature of the beast.
It is indeed. Glad you know that. Wilmington, North Carolina. Hello.
Hi guys, this is Gabrielle Reaching Colonel. I'll ask my question and then I'll jump off the air. But listen, I just wanted to know Travis's thoughts on God before his abduction versus after his abduction. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, did you find God with the aliens?
No, I found God prior to that. I believe that if you truly understand infinity in terms of time and distance, both future and past, then God is a certainty.
You were in Snowflake. You were a church-going person, yes?
No, not a regular. I was an irregular, and that kind of put me on the edge of this devout community. But I see nothing about the presence of alien beings in this galaxy, in this universe, as in any way contradicting any religious principle.
You do understand, though, that for some people, that would be...
I see it as a contradiction, yes. Yeah, I've encountered that in ways that harmed relationships. My son was girlfriend was advised to get away from him. By the local Catholic priest brought in a guy that, said his dad is consorting with demons. And it wasn't so long after that the Vatican came out and said, no, there is absolutely nothing evil about believing that there are beings out there on other planets. And so people who, say, well, if it's not in the Bible, it doesn't exist, are really pretty small-minded, in my view. They're selling God short. There's nothing in the Bible about Native Americans, and yet they exist. There's nothing in the Bible about Antarctica, but it exists. So, the idea that if it's not in the Bible, it's not true is a little bit narrow-minded in my view.
Very quickly, Jonathan on Skype. Oh, hi. Hi. Hey, Bill. I'm Mr. Walton. Very nice to meet you both. Thank you. I'm Matthew. This is Jonathan's brother. All right. I have a couple of questions. Real quick. Please explain and go in very detail what the alien looks like. The grays in great detail, like their appendages, do they irises, the color of the irises, clothing, things like that.
Yeah, they did have irises. They did not have a black obsidian-like eye. I speculate that might be some sort of a sunglass, sort of eye protective covering, similar to sunglasses, because every creature that has oversized eyes on Earth live in a very dark environment. They're either nocturnal, live in a cave, or under the sea, has great depth. So huge eyes imply low light. So, the idea that they would cover it with some sort of a dark canvas.
All right, we're at break, so think about it during break, and we'll talk more about what they look like.
Into this entire performance, we finally have one word on it. For those of you believing statistics, on your study, in 3.5 years, we have not had anybody with batting average with Michael
Is our universe a fake? An elaborate computer simulation? Philosopher Nick Bostrom, director of the Future of Humanity Institute of Oxford University, describes a fake universe as a richly detailed software simulation of people, including their historical predecessors. He says this fake universe was created by a very technologically advanced civilization. David Grant, sci-fi writer and space scientist, relates the Chinese parable of an emperor dreaming that he was a butterfly, dreaming that he was an emperor. In contemporary versions, Grant said it may be the year 2050, and people are living in a computer simulation of what life was like in the early 21st century. Or it may be billions of years from now, and people are in the simulation of what primitive plants and people were once like. David said he began bemused. The notion that humanity might be living in an artificial reality, a simulated universe, seemed sophomoric, at best science fiction. But speaking with scientists and philosophers on Closer to the Truth, he says he realizes that the notion that everything humans see and know is a gigantic computer game of sorts, the creation of super smart hackers existing somewhere else, is not a joke. Exploring a whole world simulation, he says he discovered, is a deep probe of reality. Check out the video from Closer to the at darkmatternews.com and also artbell.com. Remember yesterday when NASA's Mars Curiosity rover took a photo that really looked like an alien crab monster on the surface of the red planet? Well, now they've gone one better. A new closer photo appears to show a ghost woman on Mars. It really does kind of look like a ghost woman. Take a look at the photos on artbell.com and let us know what you see. The Heart Project in Alaska, the subject of many conspiracy theories, is being blamed by some in Moscow for the failure of the wheat crop and the smoke that has been choking the city in recent weeks. The Russian government said it will suspend wheat exports until December because of the severe drought that has hit much of the country. Moscow's tabloid press has even speculated that the United States orchestrated heat wave in order to favor its own grain exporters by blasting Russia with harmful rays from a research station in Alaska known as HARP. But the paranoia goes beyond the comments of some newspaper editors. Andrei Erishev, the deputy director of the Strategic Culture Foundation, said the real purpose of the high-frequency active oral research project project in Alaska is to build a weapon in order to destabilize environmental and agricultural systems in local countries. At the moment, climate weapons may be reaching their target capacity and may be used to provoke droughts, erase crops, and induce various anomalous phenomena in certain countries. These harsh words were published in an article written by Andre. The article has been carried by publications throughout Russia, including International Affairs. As far as weather control goes, HARP states on its website that its transmitted array of 180 antennas has no impact on that part of the atmosphere. They say transmitted energy at the frequency ranges that can be used by HARP is not absorbed in either the ionosphere or the stratosphere, the two levels of the atmosphere that produce the Earth's weather. But Russia isn't alone placing blame on the United States HARP project. Iran has also recently blamed the U.S. HARP project for the recent heat wave permeating the country this summer. Rathana Zuk, an Air Force spokesman, said HARP is scheduled to be handed over on August 11th to the University of Alaska. A ceremony for the handover is also scheduled to take place later this month. That agreement allows access for 2 years, which will provide the university and the Air Force time to negotiate an agreement regarding the transfer of the land. They say the facility has been dormant this summer and don't expect to be operational until next spring because of Alaska's harsh winter. Russia and Italy, on the other hand, don't believe a word of that. I'm Leo Ashcraft for Dark Matter News.
Did you start in the same school there? Oh my God, it's literally hell, but everybody loves state New York is hell.
I was a highwayman. Along the roads I did ride. Sword and pistol by my side. Many a young man follows my dreams. Many a soldier shed his life on my blade. Not exactly. The master taught me and the strain of 25. But I am still alive. I was later. I was born upon the tide. With the sea I did find. I still remember around the home.
In the darkest time, between dusk and dawn, from behind it, it's Art Bell's Midnight in the Desert. Now, here's Art. Here I am. Travis Walton is here. Listen to me. I've got an announcement I want to make because I've been struggling with this. So, I've received a communication from a time traveler. I consider this communication to be legitimate. And I've been trying to figure out what in the world to do. He gave me a code word, so I will recognize this person when he calls. What I'm going to do is the following. So I want everybody to cooperate. You can make your own judgments if you wish. But I think this is a real thing. So I am going to have, when I get done with the show, perhaps in an hour or two, I'm going to send this very long email to Keith, and I'm going to have him post it. I'm going to eliminate the code word he gave me so I would recognize him when he calls. Beyond that, I'm going to post it. So those of you over the weekend will have an opportunity at your leisure to read and make your own decision. I received it yesterday, and I've been really struggling with how to approach this, and I think this is the right way to do it. So by tomorrow morning, no later than tomorrow morning, or probably tonight, if Keith can do it, he will post this email. It's going to take you a while to read, but I think we have a legitimate source here, just like we've got a legitimate guy on the line right now, Travis Walton. Travis, again, your documentary, Travis, it's got the newer stuff in it, right?
Should we go to the park one more time?
So if they want to catch up on your real experience, and it is real, whether they, have you noticed, Travis, that some people react to an experience like yours with anger?
Yeah, I've experienced that. And, a sort of a desperate need to just latch on to anything to help them dismiss it for some reason.
That's right. That's exactly right. Many of my programs have been met with the same kind of anger, and I guess it's fear-based. I'm not really sure.
It is fear-based, and some of the blasts that I get every year and a half, 2 years from somebody online, I say, look, don't be afraid. It's not going to happen to you, and you would not believe how often that turns them around and they're apologetic. The extreme reaction is just fear-based.
All right, let's go to Thornhill, Ontario, I think it is. Hello.
Oh, it's Michael from Toronto, Canada.
Okay. I'm sorry, it says Thornhill.
That's right. I'm on the border of Canada and Washington.
Okay.
I have a question for your guest, Travis, and for you, Art, and for your whole audience.
Sure.
I'm with people in Canada. I've had an experience with a UFO and very similar to what the current scene as was described as speaking away. And what I'm asking about is the light. I'm actually very, very interested in the type of light. I don't believe it's normal light. Travis has already answered one of my questions when he said that the light was actually shining through the trees and onto the road. I've had an experience and met other people that say, yes, they've seen a bright light, but it did not affect the area. My question is, sir, to you and to your audience, has anybody, or does anybody know about such a thing, where a light is there but doesn't affect the atmosphere around it?
Okay, Travis.
Well, it lit up the area with a very strange sort of ethereal kind of a glow. It was a very soft light, and but it was still visible from back down the road. The reason it was washing across the road at that point was because there was a break in the trees. But it was a very strange light that made the foliage and surroundings look very odd.
All right. Before the break, the caller asked for the best description of the alien creatures that you could give. In other words, hands, legs, digits, fingers, color of eyes, anything you can come up with at all.
Well, the hands had the normal number of digits, and looked like 4 fingers and a thumb, extended towards me to wax fingernails, and pieces at the bend point. Now, there is a possibility that was actually a surgical glove, but that was the way the hands looked to me, that were extended towards me. If they were in the midst of medical type procedures, perhaps they were wearing gloves. Now, as far as the eyes are concerned, that's the reason I say, people that are lumping them together as grays. The ones I saw had a pupil, an iris, and eyelids that blinked. No eyelashes, but definitely a very large iris, a very large pupil. Even in that dim lighting, the pupil was fairly constricted.
Almond shape, as we see depicted?
No, there wasn't a huge slant to the eye, but like I said, I really do think a lot of these descriptions are accurate. They just are different beings that just happen to look that way. I think it might be common that either the daytime radiation on the planet they're from is so intense that they're nocturnal, or the atmosphere is so thick that not a whole lot of light reaches during their daylight hours.
The story in totality, to me, sounds like you were the accidental abductee. In other words,
that's my favorite theory now.
Really?
Yeah, Alan and Steve and some of the, actually Kenny, they think it was all planned, like they were laying for us. But I don't know, I did something very unexpected.
Yes, indeed. some might say stupid. I mean,
Yeah, I say I felt like this was my own irrational impulse. They say, well, if they can control you, they can make you think it's your idea. I guess they got a point there too.
Claude, you're on the air with Travis Wolf.
Well, thank you, and Travis. It's a great show tonight. You just gotta tell you one thing, Travis, is that people who have never seen a UFO themselves are going to be deniers. But as for myself, the UFO I saw, or should I say UFOs, two of them were no more than 50 and 60 feet away from me in my backyard of my house in Gurley, Alabama. So I pretty much believe what you're telling me.
Yeah, once you've seen, it changes your life.
Yeah. All right. I have a little saying. For those who have seen them, no more evidence that is necessary. For those who have never seen it and don't want to believe, no amount of proof will ever be enough.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, we've got somebody calling named AA on Skype. AA, hello.
Hi, Art.
Yes.
I got a question for
Travis.
For you and Travis. Thank you. Okay. I was wondering if you would have Clyde Lewis on sometime and Travis to you. I was wondering if they spoke to you telepathically.
I think they were attempting to do so, and it wasn't working because of the brain injury. Now, the brainwave scan, the EEG I underwent was at a very, very prestigious brain trauma center. The Barrows Neurological Institute is world famous, and I was put in under an assumed name, which made the test double blind. The technician did not know the nature of my injury. He was just told to look for injury, and he found it. So that brainwave pattern, that report, those scans are going to be reinterpreted with some new neuroscientists and hopefully follow up to see if there's any remaining evidence of that pattern.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both.
Right, thank you very much for the call. Let's see. You actually touched one of them, and somebody wants to know, again, through the wormhole, if you can describe what their skin felt like.
Well, it was really just the back of my arm. It was a kind of a swooping, sort of knocking in the waist kind of a thing. And they were, it wasn't against the skin, it was against the chest. And he or it fell back very easily. It was much lighter and softer than I expected.
Let's see. You're on the air on the phone line. I don't know where you are, but you're on the air.
Montreal, Canada.
Okay,
So
excellent.
I asked a quick question. There's been many reports of people who have been abducted who have come back in pieces or not at all. That's my first question. Second question, how have your psychic abilities been enhanced by this contact? Afterwards, have they contacted you again psychically? I'll listen off of you.
Okay, well, I think that we would acknowledge your statement about people, some of them coming back in pieces or not at all. And I think for the second part of your call, I don't think he's going to answer that, but
you got it.
You were. On to another call. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, Art?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Question for Travis?
Right.
Can I speak it now?
Yes, you can speak it now. He's right here.
Yeah, when if you could describe what the jumpsuits looked like, and if there was any type of identifying patches or anything like that on it, and then secondly, with the human type of person you saw, did that look like any type of a terrestrial type of spacesuit, or was it something that was just something beyond what we have here? All right. First, my apologies to the previous caller. That, I'm just sticking to what I can document. As far as the suits, it was just a sort of a loose, billowy, soft material, a coverall. I wouldn't call it a spacesuit at all. It was just clothing. They were alike. It was orangish brown under that lighting. That's what it looked to me. And the human-looking individual is again much more close-fitting over the, it wasn't like a leotard, but it was closer fitting. Just a blue, sort of a velour or soft, weaveless sort of a fabric. And no, there were no insignia of rank or, origin at all.
All right. Several people wanting to confirm you were taken aboard one craft and returned to Earth or returned to the ground, whatever the case may be, on a second craft, in your opinion.
Right. Yeah, a different configuration. The more rounded, more polished one is the one that brought me back. And I did see 2, possibly 3 of those in that big hangar-like structure, whether it was a larger craft or a building. It was pulling me along pretty rapidly. I was having a lot of trouble just keeping my footing. And he was in quite a bit of hurry, and it might have been for my own benefit that it was kind of a medical emergency, rather than trying to keep me from seeing too much.
Got it. All right, we're coming toward the end. Sushi Dog or somebody like that, you're Skyping on the air. Just hello, go ahead.
Yeah, this is for Travis. I'm curious about food and drink. From what I understand, he was gone for 5 days.
That's right.
When was the last time he had anything to eat or drink prior to the abduction? And B, has he ever thought about how he was sustained for 5 days?
Awfully good question, Travis.
Yeah, good question. I've heard it before. Obviously, been a lot of years. Since I was only conscious for that brief, hysterical period of time, I obviously wasn't sitting down to a meal. However, medical tests did show that there had to have been some kind of nourishment, according to, their indicators, which is the presence of something they call ketones, which is a sign that you've been breaking down your own body stores to stay alive. And that was absent. But
they would have tested you for dehydration, of course.
Yeah, and there was considerable dehydration, so they were either underestimating my fluid requirements or having another reason to minimize that as part of my treatment or something. But other than being somewhat dehydrated, and the evidence for that was 10 or 11 pound weight loss. Wow, very quickly recovered just by slaking my thirst, which was pretty intense.
My goodness.
Whatever means of sustenance, or for that matter, using the restroom, I don't have any memory of that other part. Whether I was in a coma the entire time or under anesthesia the whole time, I don't know. But probably I had at least some conscious period. I don't know if I was fed during that time or not. But after this many years, without recalling more of those memories, I really doubt I would ever come back to me.
All right, let's do it quickly. The documentary, simply called Travis, is available on your website. Or where else was it?
TravisWalton.com or On Wings, and the Wings with a GES on the end. On Wings Productions.
And we've got a conference coming up, a conference called Sky Fire Summit. And it's
that's the website, skyfiresummit.com.
Okay, so they can, I guess, get tickets or join you there. Nothing like seeing somebody really in the flesh. Well, Travis, it's been a long time since we talked. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Great to be with you again. A great show. I love the bumper music. The whole show was great.
Thank you, my friend. All right. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get this email that I mentioned posted on the at artbell.com. So don't look for it immediately. I'm going to have to get back there and get it to Keith. It's going to take some doing to get it posted. But I want you to digest this over the weekend. It's really something, let me tell you. Really something. Email from a time traveler, and it's a serious one. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'm Art Bell. For the world, all of you. Have a great one.
Night in the desert, and there was love in the air. I've been looking for the answers. All my life I've been there. As the world we live in, I'll be beating all the time. And we don't stop it. And we run out of time. Night in the desert,
Gary Balkan says go to dicksports.com. And a bunch of other things. How about one more time for the best band in the land? That's the Real Tony Band, brought to you by Scribble Peanut Butter Whiskey. This is Space Hill Tony, brought to you by the Yellow Rose, the Red Rose, and Deep Eddy Vodka. We did it again. Love you guys. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to On the Record. Flying saucers, extraterrestrials, monsters from outer space. The government has been telling us for years that they're not real. They're weather balloons, or swamp gas, or reflections from the sun, or the ravings of lunatics. But serious UFO researchers say a breakthrough may be very close. Some of the government scientists who worked on the top-secret Project Blue Book are ready to talk. What's more, a series of revealing government documents have trickled out of the federal files, documents that paint a much different picture of the UFO phenomenon. One of the most dedicated UFO researchers lives right here in Las Vegas. His name is John Lear, and he is my guest today. Mr. Lear, thanks for being here. To begin with, you're a pilot, an airline pilot, captain. You have held 17 different world speed records at one time or another. You're a member of the famous Lear family that all Nevadans are pretty much familiar with, a former state senate candidate. You don't sound like the kind of guy who would get hooked up in something that a lot of people would say is a bunch of nonsense.
Well, it's just by coincidence that I got really interested in this about 2 years ago. My father saw a UFO and my brother did, and they were very interested, but there was really no proof, as far as I was concerned, to really look into it back until about 2 years ago.
Your father and brother saw them. Can you give details?
My brother saw one. He was flying a P-38 from Phoenix to Los Angeles at night. It just appeared in front of him. They gave two trains, 92 trains that stayed in front of him, and then disappeared. And my father was flying at night. And over the Arizona Desert
So you started, you got an interest because of the other members of your family. How did you start out?
I had it, but there was really nothing I could put my finger on. Like I said, 2 years ago, one of mine came through town. He was showing me Southeast Asia together. He was retiring from the Air Force. He came over and we started talking about where he'd been for the last 15 years. And he mentioned he had been stationed at Bentwaters. And I said, oh, Bentwaters, that's where the flying saucer supposedly was in 1980. He said, no, John, that's supposedly a good one. He said, whether you believe me or not, landed. I didn't see it because we were confined quarters. I knew people who did, and I knew the names because we ever seen them. I knew no name. Since that, I ran into one of the security police. He was within 10 feet of the saucer and actually saw the two aliens get out and go up to General Gordon Williams. He was the
Tell us quite a bit of documentation regarding this Blackwater incident. Why don't you go into that a little bit?
There's the happening order that came out of the information out. And it told about the mysterious spikes and beating down and everything that happened in the forest, except the actual leader of the plane that was in the And there was also the cave called Torch Cave. And he made over 3 to 8 hours. And there was a 20-minute segment that we were able to get a hold of that you could hear him running through the forest.
December 9th and 10th, I'll be performing in
Arlington, Texas.
January 13th.
Now, why do you suppose that hasn't come out? I mean, this particular incident, why hasn't come out if so many people, and you told me about this before, I've seen it, seen these aliens. Why haven't some of them come forward?
A lot of them come forward, but they're just not getting the press. It's something that people just don't want to deal with. The press doesn't want to deal with. And people aren't going to listen to something unless Dan Rather or any of your big press people are going to tell them about it. And they're just too screwed. The Air Force has made an art form
We are huge fans of Box of Awesome. I've gotten a lot of my favorite stuff. I got the Carnivore, the American Barbecue Rub, and the Carnivore box is made by the Great American Spice Company in Rockford, Michigan. Probably my cool local
I'm not trying to sell
American small business, the stuff that makes red, white, blue go round. The best country on
and
planet
I
Earth.
found out that
And
the
here we
government
are,
retrieved
into
10
the
and
fall
15
season. So I have
actual
some
flying
hunting
saucers,
knives, some
3
really
of which
cool
are in good condition,
I
one
have
of
some
which they're trying to
travel
sell.
equipment that I
They have
use, some
between
unbelievable
30 and
bags
50
that I got
million
from
bodies
Facebook posts that I'm
in
about to take
cryogenic
to
storage.
Boston, to Philly,
We
to
even
Vegas,
have
all
the
this
name
week,
of
and
the
a good
person
durable
whose
bag.
job
Let
it
me
is
tell you, when you're on
to
the
show
road a lot,
these
it goes
bodies
a long way.
to the
Box
heads
of
of
Awesome
state
stuff
and the people
actually
who
is
are
awesome.
authorized to
To
see
get
them.
started, take
They
a quiz
represent
at
at least 5
boxofawesome.com. Your
different
answers will
civilizations.
help them pick the right box of
I
awesome
can't
for you.
imagine
Each one is
Dan
different,
Rather
personalized,
or
as you
Tom
guys know.
Brokaw,
Red
if
Man
that
and I
were to come to their
literally
attention,
two
a story
totally
of that
different people,
magnitude,
and
that
he
they
gets
would
stuff doesn't it for him, right? Red Man?
Well,
Of course, I
I
get all this stuff
can't
every
answer
kitchen.
that question. I don't know
Storage.
why they do
Bunch
it.
of
There
hot
certainly is
sauces
enough
in there
evidence
from small
based on
brands
what
all
I've
over the
looked
country,
at.
with some
For
from
instance, the
Texas, Nevada,
Local
California,
Herald
and
documentary
and they're releasing
in
boxes
Denver
every
for the
month across a
CBS
ton of
affiliate there
different
called
categories.
Extreme
Each box is
Harvest.
valued
Now,
at
since
around $70,
1975
but you only
to
pay a fraction
1980,
of that
which
price.
is a documentary,
It's free to sign
there's
up,
at
and you can
least
skip a month or
9,000
cancel
plant
anytime.
mutilations.
It's like
Now, the
Christmas
government said
every
that the
single
mutilations
month,
were normal,
except
that
stuff
the
that you actually
desert
like,
predator
not
did it.
another pair
But
of
they weren't.
socks
The
from your
mutilations,
dead
they
grandmother.
They've got a
Get
picture of it
20%
somewhere where
off
we can
your
see that
first
as you're
monthly
talking.
box when you sign up at
Well, that's the next picture.
boxofawesome.com and enter the code
There we are.
Tony
This
at
is in
checkout.
relation to
That's
United States Police did the
boxofawesome.com code
research on
Tony,
or
all one
the
word, for 20%
investigation on it,
off your
and they
first
cut out
box.
certain parts
Boxofawesome.com
with a and the cut was made with a laser beam far sharper
You
than
guys ready to
anything we
start
have.
today's
As a matter
show
of
or
fact,
what?
they were able to determine that they cut between the seams.
I got, yes, I know we're starting on time. Maybe you didn't get enough drinks in your system,
Well,
but we've been having a
we
lot
don't
more
know
fun
that we
than
have
the
this kind of
energy that I
technology.
feel
You and I
like
don't
right
know that
now.
we
Are
don't.
you
That
guys ready to
doesn't prove
start tonight's
necessarily that it's PhD.
No, except that there's usually a visual sighting of flying saucer or a light, a strange light at each one of them.
Okay, you mentioned the saucers and the bodies. Now, what kind of proof do you have that is true? How do you know that?
Well, let me take a look. Let me read to you first what the Air Force says about the bodies. First of all, I'm going to read from the Introduction to Space Science, Volume 2, Department of Physics, United States Air Force. This is Chapter 13, Unidentified Flying Objects. Now, this is what the Air Force has the students at the Air Force Academy read. And it says, the most commonly described alien is about 3.5 feet tall, has a round head, arms reaching to or below his knees, and is in silver space suit or coveralls. Other aliens appear to be essentially the same as Earthmen, while still others have particularly wide wrap-around arms and mouths with very thin lips. And there was a rare group reported to be about 4 feet tall, weighing around 35 pounds, and covered with thick hair for clothing. Members of this last group are described as being extremely strong. Now I'm not making this up. This is Denver. You can pick out an Air Force physics book and read this guy. And at the end of the chapter, they go on to say, this leads us to believe in the unpleasant possibility of alien visitors to our planet, or at least alien-controlled UFOs. Now, the picture that we have of the big head that the Air Force described, this picture was drawn by a surgeon. These are one of the bodies that was recovered in the famous Roswell incident of 1947. Tell us about that. It was the first flying saucer that crashed and was recovered by the Army. It was covered up. There has been several books about it. They recovered 4 beings, and one of the surgeons that was responsible for the autopsy drew that picture, and they came up with some of these interesting things in the autopsy. I'll just read a couple. 3.5 to 4 feet tall, 2 round eyes without pupils, no earlobes, nose is vague, described as arms are described long and thin, reaching down to the knees. Sexually considered there's a red portion of the hands, no teeth, no reproductive organs, brainless capacity unknown, colorless liquid prevalent in the body without red cells, no lymphocytes.
This is an autopsy report. You said the government goes to great lengths, the Air Force in particular, to discredit this kind of stuff. Where did this come from? How did you get that?
That came in the private, that came from the private collection of Leonard Studefield. He was one of the premier researchers who worked for the Air Force in the early 50s in the secret project reporting UFOs. When as a civilian, he continued his private research, and this is out of his collection.
Why does the government want to hide this? Why doesn't the Air Force just come forward? Why doesn't, why don't they level with us if this is all true?
Well, there's not really much you can say based on what I've been able to find out. Authorities are really, what can they say about it? They've been researching it for many, many years, and based on my information, let's say that the president decided to make an announcement. This is, if he made it today, this is what I think that you would say. My fellow Americans, I come to you before you tonight with an announcement of great importance. Despite all our denials, flying saucers do in fact exist. Where they come from, we do not know. Who is in them, we do not know. Where they are from, we do not know. Nor do we know how they got here or what they are. We are unable to duplicate any of the metals found on the civil craft we have recovered, nor are we able to figure out how they are held. We have hidden these facts from you over the past 40 years in hopes that we give you more answers. Unfortunately, we are no closer to answers today than we were 40 years ago. God bless you.
In other words, you find it highly unlikely that the president would ever make a statement.
No, it's too big. It's the massive problem is not only just the fact that there are five as well as 10 different civilizations visiting us. Apparently, and this is from the research that I've done, at least 90% of them are hostile. And when I say hostile, it's not hostile.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to come back to the president and aliens, because there have been some statements made by presidents, including President Reagan. We'll be right back.
I mean, it could be an insane person. It could be a local legend ready to break out. You guys ready for this shit? Your first comedian goes by the name of, well, we know this guy.
Welcome back to UFOs. Are they real? We're talking with John Lear on the subject. Mr. Lear, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago about what the president might say about UFOs. Do you believe that
various presidents have been informed about what you believe to be the truth on UFOs?
Each president has been informed, up to and including President Reagan. I'm not sure to the extent they are informed. Privately, I don't believe they are getting the full briefing. The people that control this information is a organization that we know of as MJ-12, and their top group of military and scientists. And I do know that when the president becomes president, it takes at least 3 or 4 months before he actually gets the clearance to know everything there is. But that doesn't mean they tell him, but it does take 3 or 4 months to go. Now, talking to the president, let's talk about what the president has actually said. Has he mentioned anything about aliens? President Reagan on December 4th, 1985. This is a copy of a speech from the White House just before he went over to Iceland. He says, I couldn't but one point in our discussions privately with Secretary General Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in this world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held, if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all our local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings who are on this earth together.
And you couldn't be just making a supposition for purpose of making a point. You're saying he's trying to tell us something.
Well, here, 1 week ago, the 42nd General Assembly, in front of the UN, on September 21st, he says, in our obsession with the antagonism of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside, universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, there's not an alien force not already among us? And this is right out of a White House speech. I'm not making this up.
What did he mean by this alien force? I mean, does it say? Does he go on to say something?
He says, what could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our people than war and the threat of war? I said the point is, why would he even bring up aliens? I mean, it's pretty far out for the President of the United States to be mentioning threats from outer space.
Okay, what about President Carter?
President Carter, we have the quote from Carter when he was doing his election campaign. If I become president, I'll make every piece of information this country has about UFO sightings available to the public and the scientists. I am convinced that UFOs exist because I've seen one.
Every day is a struggle.
Jimmy Carter says he saw one.
That's Jimmy Carter.
But he didn't tell us this.
The pressure is enormous on these people to cover this stuff up.
How can that be? Are they afraid of a panic? That people would panic?
There's the panic problem, and there's also the problem that in fact, in pro-Magnet man, there may have been some tinkering to make us what we are today. And it's been borne out by several researchers. We couldn't have exactly the missing link. Something had to happen to get us going. Between 4000 and 8000 BC, we had just been going along for hundreds of thousands of years, not doing anything. All of a sudden, bam, we started making pottery, invented the wheel, invented fire, and everything took off. What was the key that did that? I don't know, but it caused one to panic.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago before the break that you think 90% of these visitors are hostile. What makes you think that? Well, does it fit with what we think of as ET, you know?
If you read some of these books that are on the newsstand, one is called Intruders, one is called Community. They apparently come down, and when I say apparently, this is taken from 300 hypnosis cases. A friend of mine has done 140 of them. And the people are abducted, they're taken up into a saucer. Usually lasts about an hour. They do all kinds of experiments. They give them shots, they poke them, they cut them, they do all kinds of things. They wipe out their memory, they send them back. Only after several months of psychological problems, they end up going to the psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, trying to find out what the problem is, in the use of hypnosis, finds out that this person has been abducted.
What's the reason for that? What are they trying to learn?
There's certain things that they're trying to do with these abductions. The first thing is they're trying to monitor us. It started in the early 40s, and they put a little unit, a very small BB-type object, way up in the backside of the brain, and they leave it there for about 18 years. They would pick them up and put it in about 4 years old. 12 years old, they would pick them up and monitor it, and about 18, they'd take it out. The second thing they did is they put a post-hypnotic suggestion. According to many of the people that have been hypnotized, and we found out what they've told them, apparently in the next 2 to 5 years, there's going to be a big event. Something enormous is going to happen. And these people have been abducted, and there's 100,000 of them have been given some place to go and something to do. But under our best hypnotic techniques, you cannot find out what it is.
So how do we know that that's true?
Because they said they're going to do something. They know that they're going to do something, but they can't find out exactly what it is. And the third thing that they do is genetic experiments. They've been crossbreeding. There's a very good book out now called Intruders, written by Bud Hopkins. And it's about a crossbreeding experiment with a girl in Indianapolis. And they actually, the big head, what we call big head in research, the little 3.5 foot tall with a big head, they crossbreed back with this girl in Indianapolis, and there's 7 children. And just last fall, before the book was published, they brought the oldest and the youngest to show to her, and they let her name all 7. Now, this book has been thoroughly researched by Bud Hopkins, and although it sounds strange, believe me when I tell you, you may not find out in a month, a year, 5 years, or 10 years, but you'll look back at what I'm telling you now, and you'll say to yourself, my gosh, son of a gun is right.
Well, where's this girl now? She's just living out far.
She got her pensioners in town. Or just outside of town. She just got married. Bud went to her wedding. We all know who she is. She gets along, just fine. It doesn't mean just because she was abducted and gave children, it was the end of the world. It was just part of her life.
Why don't we see a lot of photographic evidence, as many cameras and field gear? Why don't we see a lot of that? Before you go on, I know the pictures that we showed in the beginning of this program, you say they're baloney, they're phonies.
That's right. The pictures you showed at the beginning were called the Myers incident. It's called the visitors from Pleiades. And any ufologist worth his salt knows, and who has researched that case, knows that he cannot back it up with the negatives and the essential information to prove that something like that happened. So we look at that as suspect.
So in other words, you run into your share of phonies as well in your research.
Absolutely. There's not that many, but there are a few out there. There's so many people that have real stories to tell that we're just so busy with those. For instance, let's take the November 17th Japan Airlines incident.
I'll tell you what, we're going to take another break, and we'll do that when we come back.
Okay.
He's one of those guys with real nice guy energy, and he's fucking awesome. I don't understand it. And it was definitely he got her pregnant sort of situation.
Welcome back. We have a few minutes left with John Lear. We're talking about UFOs. You're about to tell me about the Japanese airline incident. It's probably something that's still in the memory of our viewers.
Yeah, the Japanese airline incident was a cargo 747 that had taken off from Iceland flying to Anchorage. And as it passed over the United States border in the northern part of Anchorage, it was intercepted by a UFO. It was twice the size of an aircraft carrier, and it was followed by 40 minutes. He made a complete 360-degree right turn. He made a descent of 5,000 feet, and things stayed with him. Regardless of what you do, the FAA did have him on radar, and so did the Air Force. If you have a picture there, this is a 26-page document made by Bruce McAbee, who's a physicist employed by the Naval Surface Weapons Laboratory and one of the most respected figures in ufology. I don't think we have that picture. Okay, I'm just going to hold it up here. And you can see the size of the 747 to the UFO. Now, the UFO was not likely lit like that. It's just made like that for reference. It was dark. But this is what he saw beside it.
Well, whose rendition is this?
This is the captain's. This is from the captain's rendition when he was debriefed by the FAA. Now, certain UFO debunkers have said what he saw was a planet Jupiter. And this is an insult to all transport category captains around the world. And then the guy knows the difference between something that's twice as big as an aircraft carrier and the planet Jupiter.
I've also heard that it's the reflection of his own plane.
But the radar, that was an attempt to describe it. You can't imagine what pressure these people are under to cover this stuff up. It's tremendous pressure.
You were going to tell me that the church, did you want to go further into the JAL?
No, that's it. I just want to say that's a 26-page report. It had the captain and the ATC conversation. It had the radar plots, and it had the Air Force plots and the FAA radar plots. There was no question about it.
Well, the church.
Well, here's a copy from the evening news, July 21st, 1987. It says, prepare to meet thine aliens. Vatican theologians have acknowledged that there could be life on other planets. Now they plan to train missionaries capable of working in space and meeting aliens. Jesuit scientists at the Vatican Observatory in Frascati near Rome have reported moving lights and other identified phenomena in the sky. Starting in September, the Vatican University will have a special UFO center.
You've said before you thought a lot of their intentions were hostile, and you've mentioned before that a lot of the sightings are around military bases. How do we see them here? Las Vegas, we got a lot of military bases here.
Well, in fact, there have been a lot of reports of UFOs in and around Las Vegas, not specifically over the Air Force bases. We have the test site, and of course we know what's going on there, and we have Nellis Air Force Base, but there have not really been a lot of sightings over there. The main Air Force sightings were in 1975, and the UFOs descended on every strategic air command base guarding the perimeter of the northern United States. And they hovered over the nuclear weapons storage area, and they stayed there with impunity for up to 2 and 3 hours over a period of 3 days.
And nobody heard about it.
Well, there was a few reports, but you really don't. I have a report 150 pages long of the F-106s that were sent out to chase them, and the helicopters, and notifying the Canadian authorities, and the security patrolmen that were sent down to actually see what was going on, and they'd come up on these things, and they'd say, I'm not going any further.
You think maybe it's a top secret area if the Air Force actually does have them? Maybe they got him here.
I certainly do. Up at the test site, there's a report that of the 3 that they got in perfectly good condition, at least 1 is up at the test site and has flown, and anyone who was being flown is president
by us.
First of all, can I tell you that I like
we mentioned at the top of the show that perhaps a breakthrough might be coming, that some of these people from MJ12 or from the Project Blue Book who are in on the government's research and saw some of the stuff might be ready to talk. We got about a minute left. Why don't you tell me about
it's our information that half of part of MJ12 wants to release it, part of it doesn't. We're hoping that we can do this, but of course, as researchers, we're not aware of all the ramifications. We just know of what we're looking at. So we would like to see them release it, but we really don't know if they are.
Okay, John Lear, it's been very interesting. And you keep us posted. Thank you. We'll see you next week with more of On the Record.
That's this story. We have to find out right now. A couple ladies slipped and fell and they couldn't. That's your almost threesome. I've fallen and I can't get up. But I can get up. I can get up right now. So they're my friends. They're strippers, and they came to my apartment. Is that why you always hold onto the pole like that? Reminds me of better times. So your 2 stripper friends are on the wet floor. Explain how they get there. So they were doing they were getting drunk. They were drinking my beer, and they were doing, I think, ballet. You say they were drinking your beer like you didn't want them to be drinking your beer. They were drinking beer is what a good house, a host would say. They were. So you said they were drinking my beer. I think I'm just bitter overall from this story. But so they were doing ballet in my living room, and one of my strippers randomly doing ballet in your living room. My name, Joe Rogan. Podcast my name. Okay. Tells me that there was coke involved.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming on. Means a lot to me. You and I have some shared interests, clearly, in the world of UFOs, but I want to talk. Most people know of you because of Bigelow Aerospace. They know that you're this billionaire investor and you're a very successful businessman, but you have a deep fascination with UFOs.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sure. How did this all get
I
started?
would. But it's
Back
so,
in my
it's so
when I was about 3 years old, which would be
They're
about
like, come on,
1947,
Justin, you're so close
and
to
actually
the
the May
floor.
of that
Just
year,
come a little.
my grandparents
You're
had
right here, Justin. Just
very close encounter.
bend
It was
over.
dramatic. And
I
they
can't
were
imagine
taking
what
an
kind
afternoon
of
evening
strippers on
drive
blow.
in the late afternoon
Are you sure it wasn't
up into the
fentanyl?
mountains and coming on back down to Las
I don't
Vegas.
have the testing strips.
And they saw what appeared to be at first an airplane on fire. And the object became closer and closer to them, and they pulled off to the side of the road. And at one point, then it filled up the windshield, and they thought they were going to
I
die.
just realized that
And
I
at the last second, it shot off
I usually just to sometimes call people a bitch like that. Because when I do, I'm kind of a bitch, so it doesn't really come across.
I learned of this story when I was probably 10 years old, and because I was 3 at the time, and my mother had told me this story. So I approached my grandfather, and he wouldn't talk about it. Now, after all these years, like 7 years have gone by, because I was intrigued with it. And so I went to my grandmother, and she only would say a few words, but she wouldn't know. So I got the story from my mom, and they had, my grandfather had to sit on the side of the road there in the car for a while to recompose himself, and because they thought they were going to die. And then finally was able to drive back to Las Vegas. So that was the beginning for me. Did you ever describe what you said it looked like a plane on fire, but what was the shape of it as it got closer? I don't recall any kind of shape. It was my mother described. I don't recall that. But they just knew it wasn't a plane. They knew it was, that's right. That's right. So in the family, in the family had an event. And then I lived right next door to my grandparents. And the family had an event that kind of started things at that date. For me, other personal things came. But for the family, that was a big deal. So this was, you said 47? 47. And 47 was the time of the Roswell crash. 47 was the time there was a lot of UFO activity being observed worldwide. And the speculation is that this had to do with the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all the tests that the United States had done and Russia had done, and that a lot of interest in obviously in that, actually Russia hadn't dropped any bombs at that time, right? Yeah, it was after that. But there was interest in our species by extraterrestrials because they were like, oh, these crazy assholes are detonating nukes. Let's go take a look at it. Right. We had so-called food fighters during the war. These lights that were following bombers, and the tail gunners were the ones that saw them most often, of course. And that happened through the war, and then of course Roswell, but before that was Ken Arnold, right? June-ish, and then in July, was Roswell. There's a direct uptick though from the Trinity experiments, right? I think, I gather my feeling simply is that without any kind of other evidence or proof, that was a huge stimulus. So this was around that time when you had heard about this as a part of family discussions, and so that sort of ignited the fire initially. And I started asking my friends, as I say, when I was about 10, they were portion of family, anything. And by golly, a couple of my close friends told me things that they had never told me before. So, that wasn't necessarily an exclusive event, is what I'm saying. Other people in Las Vegas had seeing things at close proximity
And,
as well. Now, your relationship to this is obviously something that you've carried for so long. It's been an obsession of yours for so long. Yeah. It started with this, but what personal experiences, if any, have you had? Well, when I was probably 7 or so, 7 or 8, I used to have I checked up all my life to just doing silly dreams. And I had maybe 5 or 6 of these dreams. And I could never make sense of them. And I would be laying in bed on my side, and typical dream, always the same. There would be 3 short something in a kind of monk robe, and so I couldn't see any face, couldn't see any images. And these 3 whatevers were standing there, and they were not too far from my eye level as far as the height and so forth. Good child size. Yeah, and so there was nothing in the, I was an avid comic book reader, but there was nothing in the whole genre of comic books that related to that or movies, and we didn't have television until 53, 54, and even after that it was terrible broadcasting, first, but so it made no sense to me. And so in my lifetime, I never mentioned to me, including my wife. It's funny how you keep things secret and just kind of for no good reason. Maybe I would be embarrassed to talk about it. But I finally thought, well, maybe it's just dreams. Maybe it was something else. And so that was the first event personally that I had at that time. And it's like, when did you start to connect the idea of these tiny people or human-like things with extraterrestrials?
How long have you been in America?
Well, years later, when I began to start my process as a researcher and as a student in the subject, and began to talk with people who made it their business to be experts in abductions. And the more I got into the field and sat writing out questions for the researcher, the therapist who would be asking the questions, and I'd be sitting and watching the process. And just over time, I thought, maybe there's something more to it. But I'm better off not knowing anything, so I'll just walk it off and forget about it. Now, we talked about something about John Mack and the Harvard great guy. Yeah, he did a lot of these sort of hypnotic regression sessions with people who describe very similar scenarios. Well, yeah, a multitude of different situations. The abduction phenomena was very prolific in the population, it seemed like. Even we did a survey called Labor Poll, and we repeated it 3 times so that the margin of error was really reduced to like 1.5%. And abduction researchers came up with 10 questions, and so we distributed that.
That was worse than
the conclusion was a fairly relatively sizable percentage of the population had some kind of experiences, according to the research and according to the poll. I am not qualified to speak to the accuracy of whether the questions were that relevant to the conclusions or not. Pick up what they said, and so I have in my own research found people that I put them through regression. I'm not personally, but I found
really? Sing us some Frank Sinatra right now. Which Frank Sinatra song?
Through there, scattered around, maybe something in my own stuff, and they come up with these stories in these events. One of the criticisms of John Mack and hypnotic regression in general is the idea that you can put a memory into someone's head, that you could suggest things and you could create false memories. And this was something that I've read in criticism of his work, that this style of hypnotic regression and bringing up these very specific scenarios to a bunch of different people, you sort of help create, especially in people that are easily influenced, or people that are open to suggestion. You can put these false memories in their head. And so, especially when you're dealing with something that's fantastic, as a UFO or alien abduction or visitation. All that's definitely possible. There's also something called screen memory, but dealing with the power of suggestion. That's absolutely true. My experience was with different hypnotherapists, they went out of their way. In fact, if they did make a suggestion, it was just the opposite. They might say, okay, you're on board this crap. Where's the lighting coming from? Is it coming from the corner or of the room that you're in, or the room in the corners? And they get corrected right away by the person being hypnotized. And so they went just the opposite direction on purpose, to make suggestions, to maybe coax the person to come that direction, and they wouldn't do it. And screen memory is different. Supposedly, if somebody has a very close encounter with supposedly somebody that's CT, you leave that memory turns out to be entirely different, and that's put into your consciousness. And you recall something entirely different than what actually happened. Maybe you saw two deer on the road, or something like that. So, or maybe there were owls or whatever. So, that's what's important. What's crazy to me is if you go back to Betty and Barney Hill, if you go to Travis Walton, if you go to a lot of these abduction experiences, people who did not know each other, and particularly we're talking about before social media, before any of this stuff, they have very similar stories, similar to a disturbing extent. Yeah, Betty Barney Hill was accidental. I think somebody had Betty or Barney had a sleep problem. They were trying to get some therapy for a sleep disorder. There was some kind of connection like that, but it didn't have to do with, oh my gosh, we have this recollection. The story evolved through the therapy. And in order to try to fix this other problem, all of a sudden the story starts just to flow out. And so I know it was Betty first, and then Barney later, and I think Barney resisted going under hypnosis, I believe. And then everything just started pouring out. So, there's a woman named Angela Hill, she's a top UFC fighter, and she's actually the granddaughter of Betty and Barney. Her kid is crazy, and I didn't know about it until after we did a conversation. I was interviewing her, just talking to her about her fighting career. And at the end of the conversation, she, when we were done wrapping up and about to leave, she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. And then she tells me that her grandparents were Betty and Barney. And I'm like, what? It's amazing. That was her grandfather. Did you inquire? Yeah, we talked about it. And she didn't have much of a memory of him, but her parents recalled the scenes that he described, and obviously this huge national story. And I never learned about it when I was a kid. So, sure, it was in the 1950s, right? Yes. Yeah. And there was no archetype that you would sort of model, your memories after. I would wonder, like, if I ever did hypnotic regression today, I would be very skeptical of my own memories. Because I've heard so many stories of these spaceship encounters. I've talked to people like Travis Walton. I've talked to people like Bob Lazar. I've talked to these people that have had these experiences with these things. I would think that my memory might be tainted by my expectations. But you can't say that about Betty and Barney Hill. These people, there was no stories like that before. This is not some pop culture thing that they were latching onto. And even the way they describe these creatures, the similarities between their descriptions and Travis Walton's descriptions, 20 plus years later, it's very eerie. Right. And the same thing with like Ken Arnold's sightings. That was virgin territory back then in 46. Explain that to people. Well, so Ken Arnold was a pilot, and that's in that movie Phenomenon, right? You describing that? You saw Phenomenon? And so he was flying over Mount Shasta somewhere, in Washington and saw these objects, 9 objects, kind of skipping along in formation. And he, being a professional pilot, was able to estimate their speed, calculate that, and they were traveling way too fast for conventional aircraft. And the shape that he described was, I always thought of them a little bit of a manta ray shape without the tail, and kind of a little bit of a curved going around kind of shape to the craft. And that got an awful lot of attention because he was very credible as were other people that later revealed their own sightings, military backgrounds, people that had major rank, captain rank, so they had stories you would listen to about their experiences because they were professional dealers in the military.
And actually, while we were out eating dinner last night, Dan Crenshaw sent me a text, and I've shared it with everybody at the table, and it's from American Airlines pilots that saw some spectacular sighting over the last couple of days, and they're trying to figure out what the hell these people saw, but something that sped by them at some insane rates of speed, and he was recording them and stuff like that.
Whether it's abnormal or conventional, that should never happen in that proximity to that aircraft. Right? So if it were an accident, that's a really bad accident to come that close. And they were flying in the line of flight, and the sped got faster over his head. It was really moving. Yeah. It was a conventional commercial aircraft, about 400 plus miles an hour.
American Airlines pilot reported seeing a UFO. American Airlines pilot reported seeing a long cylindrical object flying right over the top of the plane as he was flying. Sunday's American Airlines flight AA2292 was operating from Cincinnati to Phoenix using an Airbus A320 aircraft over the northeast portion of New Mexico at 37,000 feet during what was otherwise a routine flight. One of the pilots contacted air traffic control at Albuquerque, said, "Do you have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us. I hate to say this, but it looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing, moving really fast right over the top of us."
So what's missing is propulsion signature, right? And so that should have been evident that had some kind of propulsion. The exhaust, some kind of exhaust was going on, right? Yeah, they could detect that if they were in the line of sight, if they were behind it.
That's a very short description. I mean, maybe it did have some sort of propulsion that they saw. It's always soft. Maybe there's a report that'll come out. They describe it in detail. That's just been calling.
Yeah, if it's not super unique, that was one hell of a mistake. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, yeah, there's a lot of those. That's the problem. There's a lot of those, and there's video of them. Of the one, what is it? The one that's on the East Coast that's moving over the surface of the water at the same rate of speed. And you see it also no heat signature, no obvious method of propulsion, and it doesn't exhibit, because that one was done, I believe it was infrared, the camera, so you should have been able to see some exhaust or some heat signature that was showing how it was being propelled at that insane rate of speed. And you hear these pilots who are used to flying, they're flying fighter jets, and they're like, holy shit, look at this thing. And they're kind of freaking out.
Well, the good news is there's so many more people with cameras and cell phones these days. And so you have a much more aware public than you did 25 years ago. In 1997, was the so-called Phoenix Lights. And they weren't just lights, because that craft started from northern Arizona, some say Clark County, Nevada, and proceeded down south toward Phoenix. Then the twilight of evening, where thousands of people saw structure. It wasn't just lights. It wasn't just people confused with flares, aircraft dropping flares, and no such things had a cold wind at that time of day. And so people saw structure. And the structure was estimated quarter around maybe from tip to tip, boomerang kind of shape, kind of craft. And yet, that should have been a really big deal news-wise. right over a major city, so many observers,
and he said, "I'm never coming home
but
again."
it wasn't. And then you
But
had,
it was
though, right? Because we don't
Thomas,
know
what's
about
your
it.
love
Well,
life actually
but
like? I
then,
believe that you're a
of
sex
course,
addict.
the governor at the time was Life Science.
No, I don't keep the vibes
And
because I like
we
I'm
know
not
now
very
that he
cozy, so
didn't
it's
know
like
what
if
to
there's a
do
connection, I'm
because
always
he
like,
was
I'm
an
gonna
actual
go now.
witness. He admitted to it 10 years later. But actually being a witness. Right. But he didn't know how to address that. But that was a famous press conference. That was a famous press conference. He had a guy dress up like an alien on stage. Exactly.
About a week ago,
If he had done just the opposite, what might have happened on that with his testimony as being a witness, a governor of the state? And then that other people that might have come forth more volume of folks saying, yeah, me too, I saw what I saw.
With your understanding of the way the government sort of processes this kind of information, that it's not available to everybody.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
And the information in terms of like what these things are, what they aren't, whether or not they're some sort of top secret aircraft that the government is working on, or whatever it is. They don't, unless they're making press conferences about these things, they don't necessarily want to broadcast what it is. And they certainly don't want to broadcast it if it's not one of ours. Do you think that they contacted the governor and informed him that he needed to make a mockery of this? Or do you think it was his own personal decision?
My feeling is it's his personal decision.
Where'd you meet this girl?
And my feeling is that
No,
the government
that's why this is a
is not
comedy
that
show.
organized anymore. Maybe it was
Right? Very good. So you were
some
staying in
quite
a
a while
boutique hotel around the
but I
corner
don't
here
think
somewhere?
that I think the denial
There's a lady that runs
is able
a
to be
float tank for Nashville.
to be carried forth without government
Honestly,
encouragement.
I've done float
So he
tank
probably did
every
just comment
time I
that
get a full hour.
yeah,
I got my dick
just,
sucked this
you
one time.
probably
I was
felt
like 5
tremendous
minutes.
pressure, right?
I
Because
feel
remember, this was
terrible.
an enormous story. It was going all across the United States. People were talking about it, and there was all sorts of sort of semi-reasonable explanations about dropping flares. The thing about the dropping flares, though, were that they hovered in the sky for a long time. Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, are they defying gravity? How are they just? Because there's video footage of it from multiple sources, home footage where people are filming these things, where there's these red lights that are just hovering in the sky. But the red lights coincided with these triangular-shaped vehicles or boomerang-shaped vehicles that other people were seeing. Well, there were people living on Camelback Mountain. I mean, this is how low this craft was to the surface. They got a little John Deere coming practically at them, just slightly over the mountain. But there's no video of that, right? Not that I don't know. I've never seen.
This was 97.
Yeah, see, phones back then. Not everybody had a phone, and they didn't have good cameras. But the thing about even today, with cameras, most cell phone cameras are capable of seeing things at a zoom. With the exception of the Samsung Galaxy series, the new ones, they actually have a setting where you can take photographs of the moon, because they have some pretty spectacular zoom capabilities. It's pretty interesting stuff. And if you got one of those and you saw something in the sky, maybe you could zoom in on it and get a good shot of it. Well, you're talking about things traveling at insane rates of speed. It's very far away. You're really not going to get much of it. It's got to be much closer to have definition of what it is you're looking at. Now, there was a story quite recently of a pilot in a fighter jet that took a photograph of some similar shaped object, some triangular shaped object. Apparently, it was very clear image. It was a very clear image, and there was some speculation about people releasing this, and that they're going to release it, and there was hesitation about releasing it. Do you know about this? Well, down the one off the East Coast,
real recent.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Jamie? I think we discussed it. The picture apparently is bullshit. Response to release a photo taken from Navy pilot showing unidentified objects. So I heard that this was nonsense. I heard from people that are in the know that this is not the image that they're talking about. The one they have, this is according to people that are in the military, the one that they have is much clearer than this.
There's more than one image, right?
I don't know.
We're going to be talking about different ones.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, breaking. Debrief Media has learned the leak of an unclassified photo said to have been widely distributed in the intelligence community, which reportedly shows what the DoD has characterized as unidentified aerial phenomena. I don't know if that's... See, obviously, I'm just talking about my ass, but what I had heard was that was not the image in question. That there was a much clearer image in question that was pretty stunning. That they were debating on whether or not to use these. Because once the New York Times in 2017 published that front page article that showed some of those images that have been captured from the video cameras and the fighter jets experiences, and talked about Commander David Fravor's experience with the Tic Tac UFO off the coast of San Diego. That sort of like released a lot of pressure on the concept of if you discuss these things, you're a foolish person. Right, for a long time, and I'm sure you must have experienced this because you've been in the game for a long time, right? Discussing UFOs in 1970 or in 1980, like people would look at you like you're probably crazy or something, right?
I was too busy being in business in those years.
You didn't care.
I had a little plan I was following. I put together when I was a kid, and I was on a mission to resources. So that much thing, and that it went under.